Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Buckeye Huddle live post-game show. I am Mark Givler. Got Devin Radcliffe here with me. Ohio State 24, Wisconsin 10. Bit of a road scare at night in Madison, which has been kind of an interesting place to play over the years, but Ohio State gets it done. We're going to get to Devin here in 1 second. Want to make sure everyone's aware we are now sponsored by WagerWire, the instant reaction show. WagerWire is an app that helps you become an improved better, a better, however you want to put it, by allowing you to sync all of your sportsbook and track all of your bets in one place. So if you're on 3 or 4 different online sportsbooks, you can track them all in the WagerWire app. So it's something just kind of keep track of all your bets, keeps your stats, your betting history. You can also sign up for other sportsbooks, collect their bonus offers, just keeps everything in one place for you. They're always they're incentivized, by you guys winning. They don't take the action. They just kind of provide you a place to keep up with all of your actions. So that's what I kind of like about them. It's easy to use. You can also follow them on Twitter at WagerWire, but otherwise head to the App Store or the Play Store, Apple, Android, whatever. Download the app, promo code BuckeyeHuddle, all one word. We would appreciate that if you're into the whole gambling thing. So let's get rolling here, Devin. Interesting game. This one I think it felt a little different than last week. Last week just kind of felt close the whole way. I don't want to say it was scary last week because Ohio State was kind of always in control, but it was just kind of one of those games kind of plodded along. Tonight, boy, if this thing had gotten away from them, they would have really been kicking themselves. This was a game that I thought, looking back, probably should have been a 3 to 4 touchdown win. They left a lot of points out there. The offense did not help the defense at all in the first half. What are your thoughts right now? How do they get past this thing they have with McCord and the slow starts and this was almost even, I think, more than usual. This was more of a struggle. And yeah, it's the first point of my 3 and out here tonight is McCord's first half struggles continue. There's been games where he has started slow, whether it's the offense has started slow or Kyle has just been a little bit off. This one was a little more than that. This was a real struggle.
I think it's a great point you just made. I think up into this point, you could basically characterize the offense and McCord as a slow start. He'd be a step behind or just a little late with his reads, et cetera, what have you. Tonight was actually a struggle. I mean, he had 2 first-half interceptions, obviously the fumble. The interceptions were not there's anything such thing as a good interception necessarily, but they were definitely more of the category of, what are you looking at type interceptions. The one in the end zone comes to mind where, hey, there's nothing there, throw it out of bounds. I mean, that's, a yard further to your right and you throw it out of bounds and, live to play another down or kick a field goal or whatever. I can't remember exactly the situation was at that point. So I think this is definitely the first time we've really seen McCord struggle. And we saw the impact it had on the offense in the first half, fortunately. And we'll get to this, obviously, as you had Trey Henderson back, was able to create some explosiveness for him there in the first half. But yeah, I definitely agree with you there that this was not a slow start. This was definitely a struggle in Wisconsin tonight.
Yeah, I think both of the interceptions, guys, I'm sure everyone will jump on me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think both the interceptions in that first half were on first down.
Okay.
So
yep.
you're driving on the first one. The first one was inexcusable. I mean, the second one I didn't love, of course, but I thought the DB made a pretty good jump on the ball, made a pretty good catch. I mean, it's maybe not the type of catch you would expect a DB to make. It was kind of behind. It was hot and kind of behind him, but the second one was just kind of got too locked in on Marv and got a little tunnel vision on Marv there, and DB made a nice break on the ball. But that first one is a killer. It took points off the board. It was early in the series or in the set of downs, so you didn't need to force anything. If that's fourth down, you just you live with it. It's like it is what it is. You got to do something on fourth down, but you can't be doing that in early down situations. Yeah, I didn't love that at all. And then, look, Henderson drops a touchdown right before that. So it was a struggle for McCord in the offense. I didn't think I thought Josh Fryer's probably been their first or second best offensive lineman this year. I didn't think he had a great night. Kind of an interesting game there, but the defense again, I said this last week. I'm going to repeat it again because it looked like the same thing to me this week. They're not constantly bringing pressure, but boy, when they do, does Knowles seem to have his finger on the pulse of where to bring it and when to bring it. I mean, just the timing of these blitzes. He teed up a sack for Lathan Ransom that actually Lathan didn't get, but it blew up the play. Lathan ended up missing the tackle, but again, it blew up the play. And then he teed up Ransom again on a run blitz where he ran him right into the hole and got like a big tackle for loss inside Wisconsin zone 5. This just felt like, again, it feels like someone who's in the zone right now, just feeling it right now with his calls.
Hancock had the huge blitz as well.
Yes,
coming through on an interior edge pressure there, where he brought him inside and created a big, 10, I can't remember what it was, 10, 15-yard loss there on Wisconsin's offense. And I definitely agree. And I think it seemed like I make this comment every week after I rewatch a game. He is getting more and more comfortable, it seems, week by week with, whatever the buzzword you want to call it, creeper, simulator pressure, zone pressure, what have you, where, like you said, he's been able to pick his spots, and he's doing a very good job. But when he does decide he's going to bring a pressure, it's hitting instead of just bringing pressure for the sake of overwhelming the opposing offense. He's picking his spots. He's creating the opportunities. I think one of the pressures you saw Eichenberg go first, pull the guard with him, and the pressure came behind him. I can't remember exactly when that was, but again, he's doing a phenomenal job picking his spots about when he's going to bring pressure, and you're seeing the results for the defense again tonight.
And it's 3 and out, not 4 and out, so I can't include Trevion Henderson. Sorry, I had to cut it at 3. I'm sure you're going to want to talk about Trey here soon, though. But my other point here on the 3 and out was Marvin Harrison Jr. I'll be the first one to admit, up until like 8 days ago, the day before the Penn State game, I would have given Marv probably less than a 5% chance at best of winning the Heisman Trophy this year. I would take the field today, but I would take the field against any one player right now in terms of winning the Heisman. I think he has propelled himself through his own play the last 2 weeks in big games, in games where his play was arguably the difference in winning or losing, winning or going to overtime or something, huge game-changing plays. And he's doing this at a time when some of the quarterbacks are showing some warts. I think Caleb Williams' repeat run is just about over at this point. I think, even like Michael Penix has had a couple of games where it's like, ooh, that wasn't great. Bo Nix maybe is a guy, and JJ McCarthy. I know no one's going to hear that, but Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy are maybe two guys with some momentum right now. But ultimately, I think there isn't a generational quarterback season happening out there right now. And I think what could happen here, if Marv continues to play like this, especially if Marv has a huge game and a win in Ann Arbor in a few weeks, if he continues to play like this, I think those quarterbacks could all kind of cannibalize each other in the voting, where everyone picks their different flavor of quarterback that they like, and they kind of all cancel each other out. And everyone that picks their different quarterbacks all has Marv, even if it's not first on the ballot, has Marv, everyone has Marv second or third on the ballot. And then there's 5 different quarterbacks splitting the votes. I think he could play. I think he's playing his way into this conversation.
Well, the big thing you just hit there was right at the end. He's got to keep playing if he wants to be in the conversation. I mean, that's a matter of fact. I mean, Penn State, he was the difference in the game for the offense, and basically a defensive stalemate tonight. When he scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, one on the mesh, shallow cross, came free, catch and run. Second one, he caught that beautiful fade ball in the end zone. I think we're going to get Coach Day here. So, but yeah, he's got to keep playing.
Yep, Coach Day.
Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, just touch on Trevion today. I mean, one, just getting it back, they still some brains. With the plan to give him the ball 26 times in the round, 4 or 5 times a year.
I don't know, what we had in terms of a number coming in, but we held them out last week. you know, it was close, but we felt like we wanted to make sure that he was 100%. And, you know, this is a big run we're about to go on. And you can just see the difference he makes when he's out there, the explosiveness, the speed. I thought he ran hard tonight. And he's a weapon out of the backfield. You know, you can see that down the sideline. Boy, you know, the one that we just missed on the touchdown there, you know, we had a linebacker out in one-on-one, and you can see, I mean, it was one heck of a route he ran. We just didn't connect on it. We spent a bunch of time on that route. So, you know, that was like getting stabbed in the heart. But you can just see when he's out there, the impact he's having on our offense. And, you know, to get that run there in the fourth quarter was big.
Over here to the right, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
To have 3 turnovers and still win the game by 2 touchdowns. What went well to lead the victory?
Well, it started off, I think, with a good combination of you know, the run game, and you know, we did have some you know, pretty good, you know, passing plays as well, and I thought that combination was good. And I think, you know, we're all frustrated that we're just not able to, you know, finish off some of those drives, and you know, when we get into those plus territories, you know, we just, you know, we got to finish them off, and so there's a lot that goes with that. You know, certainly the coaching's a big part of it, but again, you know, when you get a guy like Trey back and then you have Marvin on the outside, you can see the difference it makes. You know, we decided to hold the Mecca one more week. He was close, but you know, we just made the decision to hold him. You know, I do feel really confident we'll get him back next week, but you know, he makes a difference. But just some really tough performances out there. Like, certainly we can talk about the defense all night, but just offensively, you know, Cade and Julian, I mean, these guys, I mean, they were battling at the end. And, you know, you get to this time of year and you got a lot of bumps and bruises and things like that. And, you know, the guys played hard. I thought the offensive line got movement tonight. I thought so, you know, in tight ends. I mean, we moved the line of scrimmage, and then again, having Trey back made a big difference. Certainly, you know, running for 160 yards.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
More on Travion. How frustrating is it? It sounds like the game plan when you have changes.
Yes.
He's been kind of in and out really over his career. How challenging has that been? Is it good to see somebody who is, maybe some people question him, to come back and have a night like this?
Well, the one thing about Trey is, like you said, you can do so much with him because he has such a great skill set, and he's one of the more competitive guys we have, and so nobody wants to be out there more than him. And you can see when he's out there, he has that drive. And you know, he hadn't played a game in a couple, you know, a few weeks, I guess now. And so even at the end, he was toughing it out because he was a little winded there at the end. He hadn't, you know, rushed for that many, had that many carries in a while, and he had a couple of receptions and a couple of routes. So, you know, I thought he handled it well, and you can see, you know, what a weapon he is when he's out there and he's at full go. So, you know, hopefully we have another great week of practice and we can keep doing those things. And then it just puts more and more pressure on the defense when you have someone like Marvin. You get, you know, Julian out there and Cade, and so that's the idea. And you know, I still don't think we put a complete game together on offense, and so we'll get back to it this week and keep swinging.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, any update on Lathan?
Yeah, no, I don't have an update actually. I mean, I'm not even sure exactly how it all shook out there. It was all kind of chaotic. So we'll try to get you know, what we can here in a little while.
Gentleman next to Tony, did you have a question? Yes, sir.
Just what does it say for Marvin? I mean, all the attention he gets from defenses to keep putting up this.
Yeah, it's I say it every week. It's just tremendous. I believe he's the best football player in the country. You know, to have another, you know, a couple touchdowns and 120 yards, and I guess we targeted him 10 times. You know, probably could have targeted him a few more. You know, we're always going to try to figure out ways to do that. But he's a dynamic player, and he keeps bringing it every week. And the consistency is starting to show more and more week in and week out. Just, you know, the playmaking ability, and I mean, what a catch he made down there! My goodness, I mean, for him to get a foot inbounds and hang on to it, you know, I was like, man, that's gonna be a hard one. And then when I saw the replay, I mean, it did move, and just an unbelievable catch.
Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You mentioned guys who are banged up. How hurt is Kyle right now, and is that affecting him at all, leading to some of the mistakes that we saw in the first half?
No, I think, you know, I think it's like, you know, bumps and bruises and things like that. And, you know, I think something maybe happened in the game there, and, you know, he was able to fight through it, which was great. And so we'll get an evaluation, but I think, you know, he'll be fine. But, No, I don't think that those things are getting his way right now. But I thought he toughed it out at the end, and still hung in there. And when you do maybe have a couple tough plays, the easy thing to do is, or what most people do is, they start to get gun shy, but he didn't do that. He kept swinging, he kept pushing. You could hear him on the sideline, right before that last drive where Travion ran to make it a 2-score game. I mean, he was in that huddle getting after the guys, and he showed good leadership there. So I thought that was a positive.
Tim May on 3, Letterman row.
Yeah, following up with that, did you have a talk with Kyle at halftime though a little bit? Because he did seem off. I mean, both interceptions were odd. One looked like should have been thrown away, things like that. What were your discussions like with him to kind of settle it and everything else?
Yeah, I usually don't get into the plays right after the game, but I have a pretty good feel of exactly what happened on both of them. I think he would tell you on the first one, it was just a bad decision. It was first down. The play was designed to go to the tight end. The tight end got caught up, and it was not how we designed it, and the ball should have got thrown away. It was a bad decision. The second one, the corner came off on cover 3, and he's reading the flat defender, and that corner he just came right off him. He took a chance and he made a nice play. I don't really blame him for that play. I don't. I mean, there's going to be times where when you're pushing it down the field, things like that are going to happen. So I told him, hey, I get it. The corner came off. Let's just play the next play. Those plays are behind us, and so those are the conversations we had. But he knew right when he came off the field in the first one that he wanted that one back. So good to see him hang in there and keep playing hard. But I think the other thing is just, in general, we get into a 2-score or a 1-score game. We're trying to make it a 2-score game. We get around the 30-yard line. Like we have to make sure we're in field goal range and give Jaden an opportunity. And 2 times we didn't do that. And so, that was an opportunity that was missed.
So you leave her a little frustrated like the last couple of games. 11 points on the field. I mean,
yeah.
Notre Dame, Penn State, you talked about this.
Yeah. I mean, now we're going against good teams, and Luke does a great job. I always want to make sure, I don't do that enough. It's just, the teams we're playing are good teams. They're well coached. They have good players. And so, I don't want to sound flippant when, I say we expect to score every time. These guys do a great job, and they had a good scheme, and they did a nice job with everything. The fans were really into it. It was a great environment. So, we want to, go on the road and be, road warriors and win these games on the road. And it's not always going to be the way you want it, but yes, what we want to get done, the expectation. And so, still things we got to get better at.
Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast.
It just felt like one after another guys were coming out. JT gets triple up there. Nathan comes out. Jack at one point. Becca didn't play. Julian came up. A, it's probably pretty good for the depth. But B, was there any sense you had in the third quarter that maybe this is not our night?
No, you're not allowed to think like that. You don't have a choice. I always say we're in control of what we do. And, this time of year, we play physical brand of football, and things like that are going to happen. But most of those guys, they get right back in the game after taking a shot, and for those who have played football before, it's like having sometimes, you get leg whipped or something. It's like someone taking a Louisville Slugger and smacking it into your shin. It hurts. And, certainly there's a difference between hurt and injured. But our guys, man, they battled, and you saw a bunch of guys just fighting at the end. They didn't want to come out of the game. So yeah, I think our team, at halftime always has had a good look in their eye all year, knowing that they want to come out and play really well in the fourth quarter. And, you're seeing us do that. I mean, we're playing well in the fourth quarter. I'd like to see us, even play better in the first half, but we are finishing games the way we're supposed to finish them. We're finishing games. I think there's ways that we can finish them better, but at the end of the day, the goal is to keep winning, and we got to keep doing that. And we know the challenges are going to keep getting bigger and bigger here down the stretch.
Clay Hall, WSYX.
Yeah, along those lines, Coach, somebody said, hey, you passed your toughest 4 tests along the way. Would you caution people that the next 3 are not easy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mentioned to the team as we were watching some games this afternoon, just watching some of the teams play at noon, then the 3:30 games. You got to bring it every week. And you have one bad day and your season's ruined, and the teams that we play are very good teams. They're well coached, and, winning is just not something that we're entitled to. We got to do it. And That's the competitive stamina that we talk about. And, especially going on the road, these games are hard. The next one will be a battle next week against Rutgers. It will. I think it's a noon kickoff, right, Jerry? Is it noon?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a noon kickoff. I mean, Greg's doing a good job with those guys. So battles, but the good thing is we're getting battle tested as well. I think the more battles you get into, the more poise you have because you have something to reference. You don't panic. But again, we're going to watch the film and throw coffee against the wall again, I'm sure.
I'm gonna have time for just one or two more for Coach Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You said you could talk about the defense all night.
Yeah.
How much of a security blanket is it for you to have to know that you have is there anything tonight that you think shows you they haven't put?
Yeah, I think they're in the second half when Wisconsin came out, scored, we came back, scored, and then the ball was, I think it was, coming out, and then we ended up on like the 10-yard line. We brought it to midfield, flipped the field, got it inside the 10, and usually it'd be like, well, we got to go for it, we got to score. And so pooching the ball in those situations right now, like you said, with a good defense, you feel like, you got an opportunity to get the ball back. If it's a 3 and out, then you're going to get the ball at midfield. If it's a couple first downs, and you feel decent about those. And so, yeah, I think it's something where you got to get a feel during the game how it's going. But it starts with the run game. If the run game, is if we're stopping the run, then you feel like you're in control of the game. And I think that was a big part coming into the game. We had to run the ball, stop the run, and show toughness. I think we did all three of those things. Yeah, it was excellent. Again, just not giving up an inch with the ball on the 1-yard line. Just keep fighting and keep swinging, keep playing. The play Tommy made on the shovel was huge. But our guys, they played hard. They rallied to the ball. No, I mean, I thought the secondary played well. They got their hands on some balls. That was another really good performance by our guys.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Folks, I'm going to bring up, just hang here. I'm going to bring up Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm going to put him right at the middle. I'm going to put Jordan Hancock right here to Marvin's right. And what we're going to do is I'm going to open up the floor for about 3 or 4 questions right off the bat for Jordan. And then we're going to let him go. And then we'll finish up with Marvin and get a couple other players here. So Jordan, I want you right here. Marvin, if you could grab the middle. Questions for Jordan Hancock. Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Hey, Jordan, you had a young quarterback you're going against, and you guys did a lot of different things to confuse him. It felt like they were 6 of 18 on 3rd and 4th down. Another great showing there. Just what are your thoughts maybe about what you guys were able to do?
That's just all credit to Coach Knowles. He gave the quarterback a lot of different looks. We had to respond well to their personnels because we haven't seen sometimes their personnel, maybe 4 receivers on the field. So I feel like our defense responded well to that.
Questions for Jordan. Austin Ward, the podcast.
Jordan, what do you need that to go back?
I'm at everything, man. So I could really play that nickel spot. That 3rd down stop he had, that's an elite ball player, All-American type play, and you won't see that from any other corner in the country. So I'm just happy to have him back.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
They scored in the first possession of the second half to tie it, and then they score again. And then they had the ball several times out for a chance to tie it. How much confidence do you guys have in that situation? You kind of revel in that?
Yeah, we had a lot of confidence in there. I know me personally, I have a lot of confidence in our D-line. So they're getting back to the quarterback. I don't think their O-line could block our front 7 for the whole game. So I just give credit to my D-line.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Jordan, it seems like all season this defense is kind of adjusted and snapped when you need to. The goal line stand at the end of the first half. I know they get 3, but how important was that for this defense?
Oh, it was a big stop. Before the halftime, I think it was like 3 seconds left. They tried to do a shovel pass. I was coming off the edge, but Tommy made a great play right there to kind of hold that big running back. So that's just a huge goal line stand. We have to win the last 3 minutes of the half, and that's what we did. So.
And last question for Jordan, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
Can you just expand a little bit more? You said that Wisconsin was playing more 4 receivers and things that maybe you had anticipated. How different was what they showed you, and What did you guys have to do to justify?
We had a new package in this week, so maybe a little bit more DBs in the game to play man-to-man coverage against their wideout. So that was kind of the thing we had to make, adjustment we had to make.
All right, Jordan, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We're going to open up the floor for I'll open up the floor for both. We also have Travion Henderson here. Let's go Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row, the back.
Marvin, is there something to you guys being a second half team? It seemed like with injuries and turnovers in the first half, it didn't seem like it was your night, and all of a sudden you guys can just turn it on in the second half. Is there something to that for you guys?
I mean, a little bit. Definitely, offense. We need a touchdown all year. I think we've kind of come clutch in those situations. The defense has kept us in the game, for the most part throughout the whole year, and the offense kind of gets a slow start. But that's something we're still working on. Obviously injuries definitely play a part in that, and trying to get everybody back healthy would be nice. But yeah, just I think credit to the coaches and the players for in the fourth quarter when we need touchdowns, make big plays. We do that.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Travion, what was the injury you were dealing with the last few weeks, and what do you think it was that enabled you to come down with such a big game your first game back?
I took a cheap shot at the beginning of the Notre Dame game, and so that's why I've been out. But thank God he's healed me and allowed me to come back out here and give my team everything I got, man. That's me being out here is all because of him. So I give all the glory to him.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Travion, frustrating has it been when people don't know what's going on with you? They just don't understand what injuries and being hurt is. But then when you come back and have a game like this, is it extra satisfying?
Man, I don't pay attention to any other comments or none of that stuff. I don't even see them most of the time, man. I'm living to please the Lord and not anyone else. So
How healthy are you right now?
I'm very healthy, very healthy.
100%?
Yep.
Are you effort?
Yeah.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
The last touchdown run that you had, take us through that play a little bit. It seemed like you ran hard and fast and as much purpose as you possibly could.
Yes, man. I mean, O-line taking care of business, receivers, tight ends, blocking on the perimeter, man. That's all because of those guys. And when they take care of business like that, man, we dangerous.
Tim May.
Travion, you finally bust through. Y'all kept knocking on that door all night. What did it feel like to finally explode through a hole there? And, a little bit of patience involved there, but boom, what did that feel like?
It felt great. I mean, it took a while, man, but it felt great. We just had to keep swinging. We knew we was going. We knew one of them was going to end up popping out soon, and one of them did. So.
And for Marvin, the second touchdown, the toe tap again and stuff. Just take us through that and what was that catch like? And it looked like it might be on your highlight reel eventually.
We knew it was man coverage, and I think we liked the matchup. And Coach Day and Kyle gave me a chance to make a play, and I just tried to do my best to do that.
I'm gonna go. One more question for Travion. First of all, anyone else got a question? Andy Anders.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you what's the significance of the Bible verse 1 Corinthians 5:7?
I will walk by faith even when I cannot see. I mean, it's been rough these past games, not being able to be out there for my teammates, and I feel like, man, God just kept having me look back at last year, what happened when I tried to go my own way, keep dealing with the injury, trying to go out there instead of just trusting Him. And this time, just put my trust in Him, even though I couldn't see, where He was leading me. I knew it was going to be somewhere special. And today, it showed.
What do you mean by go your own way last year?
Last year, I kept going out there, knowing I wasn't healthy, knowing I wasn't ready. But God just told me this year, He told me, stay patient. I got you. And He always got me, man. The man above always got me.
Travion, thank you very much. We're going to keep the floor open right now for the other two. Gentlemen right here in the blue. Here. Yep.
Marvin, just what kind of difference did it make for this offense having Travion back? How much difference?
Big difference. He's the most explosive back in the country. Anytime he touches the ball, and they take the 6. And, I think that definitely puts a lot of pressure on defense and, a lot of attention sometimes goes to the passing game and the receivers. But when you have a dynamic back like that in the backfield, you have to account for him as well. So you can't really, not load the box with numbers. So having him back was great.
and he's the best back in the country.
We also have Jack Sawyer, defensive end here. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, for Jack, the mic over, we're not gonna be able to do it.
There you go, big fella.
Thanks, bro. Fucking neck hurts. I feel like it gave us a lot of momentum. We always say, give us an inch and we'll defend it, and that's kind of just our motto. And so, it felt really good to be able to hold strong and force them to a field goal at the end of the half. I think that was big for us. Yeah. I mean, it was a big scare. Obviously, JT's a huge part of this team, one of the best players in the country. So when he went down, everybody held their breath for him.
Austin Ward, the podcast.
Jack, is that the best game you can play?
It's not really about me. I just thank God for us to be able to get a win out there and to play a complete game. I think on the defensive side of the ball and the offense, got it rolling in the second half, which they always do, running the ball, leaning on guys up front. And just happy with the team win in a tough environment like Wisconsin is.
I'm not asking you to pat yourself on the back. It just seemed like you maybe felt more confident. Maybe the whole front felt that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think as a front, it was time for us to, start dominating and making plays within the scheme. So that's kind of what we went out there and did. Knocked the line of scrimmage back. Getting off of blocks was huge this week. Coach Johnson preached that to us. So I think that's what led to us getting off blocks and making some tackles.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Marvin, Kyle had those two picks in the first half. It looked like he was banged up. What did you see from him? Just kind of
Yeah, I mean, he's a resilient guy. He's the leader of our team as well, so we all kind of look to him to lead us, especially on the road in a tough environment like it was tonight. And he did that. Whether he was 100% or through some tough times, he never dropped his head, and he had some good guys around him to lift him up. But that's just the kind of guy he is, and that's the kind of leader that you need for a team like this.
We're gonna have to wrap it up, folks. Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Marvin, you've said a few times the last few weeks that this offense hasn't played its best game yet. You get Trey back tonight. Coach Day said Emeka's pretty close. When everybody's back out there, what can the ceiling be for this group?
As high as it can be. I don't think there's no limit that we could ever put on ourselves. And when we're all healthy and clicking with the defense that we have right now, I think we're a national championship team. We just got to prove it each and every week.
Guys, thank you very much, folks. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right, so that was Ryan Day, players. I am not Marvin Harrison Jr., by the way, in case anyone was confused. Great performance from Marv tonight. Let's get to Dev. We talked about all my stuff here before the press conference started. Let's get to Devin's 3 points here. And Devin, what did you see tonight that you are dying to tell us about?
Well, my first thing is kind of the obvious one, but what an impact Travion Henderson has when he is 100%. He looked every bit the 5-star that Ohio State landed coming out of high school. Explosive with the ball in his hand. He looked more decisive in his cuts than we've probably seen him in his 3 years here. And the biggest thing I think we saw, and you could kind of look at his last touchdown run to put the game away, to personify all of this. You saw his speed. You saw him make a cut. And you saw him run through tackles. Like we haven't really seen him run before and to put the game away. So you saw really what he's capable of as a running back tonight, and the difference he has on the in the offense when he's out there and healthy. So hopefully it's something they could keep building on and knock on all the wood you got in the house that he stays healthy the rest of the way. You heard him talk about him trying to play hurt last year. So hopefully again, knock on all the wood you got so he stays healthy the rest of the way. So I mean, my first point of my 3 deep there is the impact Travion Henderson had coming back for the offense.
Yeah, I agree. That was part of my post-game instant observations on BuckeyeHuddle.com. If anyone wants to read that after this, how fresh he looked. He looked more fresh than he did at the beginning of the season opener. I mean, he looked ready to go. I was almost shocked how explosive he was tonight. But yes, when he is running hard and he's running through contact, he can be a special back. And the point I made was, the last couple of years with Stroud, I think Henderson is more important to this team than he was the last couple. And the reason for that is with Stroud, I think in terms of what you wanted to get out of the run game was like kind of just don't mess it up, keep us on schedule, get us some 3rd and shorts, maybe grind a few first downs out late in games when there's a lead, but really just keep CJ on schedule so we don't get into 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 10, and keep us in 2nd and 7, and keep so we can keep the pocket clean for CJ and let him move the offense. This year's team clearly needs an extra guy beyond just the passing game to open things up, create some explosives. And I like the other backs. I really like Dallin Hayden, but I like Chip. I like Mayan. But those guys aren't going to do what we saw Trey do on a couple of occasions tonight. They don't have that second gear. So if they can get him going like this, it will make things easier on the pass game. It will eventually, hopefully, if they don't turn the ball over, lead to the offense, getting into the high 30s and low 40s again. That's a key component that he brings to this team that, again, I don't know that they really needed that the last couple of years, but this team, I think, needs that extra juice out of the backfield. And tremendous game from him. Super impressed by how well he ran, how hard he ran, how decisive he was, as you mentioned. No dancing this tonight, just, find a hole and go. So that's a big positive for me coming out of tonight. There wasn't a whole lot new that I learned tonight, really. I mean, the defense we knew after last week we kind of expected them to do this again, and they did. We know how special Marvin Harrison is. I mean, there's a lot of things we already know about this team, but I think that's a real eye opener if he can run the ball like that. What else you got, Devin?
My second point, and it's kind of it's nice that we're repeating it, is the defense again. Huge game for them. And the reason I titled it Snapback is I think tonight we started to see Wisconsin find some success in 3rd and longs. I don't remember percentage necessarily, but the one that comes to mind was a 3rd and 15 out of their own end zone they converted or something like that. It was, it's 3rd and long, and they converted for a first down. And you saw it a couple times tonight where Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator for Wisconsin, was able to dial up some answers to beat Knowles' coverage a few times. Now, that being said, snap back there, you're over band, you pull it back. We let it go. What's happens? Well, snap back and it stings you. And we started to see that as the game wore on. Now, the defense hitting home, and we meant to talk about earlier with the pressure, snapping back and creating the negative plays for the defense as Wisconsin kept going more to that drop back game, thinking they had found some answers, end up being a snapback for them. And the Ohio State defense was the one that took advantage of that and created the negative plays, especially in a game as tight as this one was, end up being huge for them.
Yeah, there's some things I'm seeing out of this defense, not just physically and necessarily even schematically, kind of more mentally. You talked about that 3rd and long deep in their own territory. They get the first down. The last 3 or 4 defenses at Ohio State, heads go down. Wisconsin probably drives down and scores, or they certainly sustain that drive. The play that Denzel Burke made down the sideline on it was not a great, it was an arm punt is what it was. It was a Hail Mary. But how many times the last 3 or 4 years have we seen that turn into either a catch or a PI? I mean, it's just happened so many times. I'm still in that mode of oh, this guy's going to come down with this ball somehow, or there's going to be a flag or something. And Burke played it perfectly, didn't panic. We saw Hancock do that last week. It's just been a thing where these little things that would add up on them the last couple of years and would eventually break them have not done that this year. And so that's been really positive for me on the defense. What's your last thing here?
So my last point is I'm getting a little out of character here, but I guess you could say I'm looking at it from if I was defending day, if you will. His play calling, he tends to get stuck in a rut. And especially tonight, you saw it manifest itself. You know, we've talked about it before. When he gets in short yard situations, you see him go run on third and then try some sort of weird, you know, we repped it just this week, 4th and 1, double flea flicker reverse play action, you know, oop de oop, annexation of Puerto Rico on 4th and 1 that never works. Well, tonight what we were seeing was, you know, run. It was almost felt like back 20 years ago was run, pass, punt. And, you know, Wisconsin was starting to get a beat on that as the game progressed. So I'd like to see tonight day and maybe help the offensive line out, help McCord out a little bit and kind of put a couple different conversation topics together here. Take that shot on first down. Catch the defense on their toes when they go to the 8-man box. And we saw a few times tonight with Wisconsin where, you know, I'm sitting here and kind of casual fan going, well, if they got 8-man front, that means Harrison Jr. is singled up somehow. Check to throw it deep to the best dude in college football on first down and see if that doesn't get the defense to panic, which would then in turn take a guy out. You know, you heard the players even talk about take a guy out the box, clean up the run lanes. Maybe McCord gets his confidence faster or gets in a groove faster because he hits a one-on-one ball early to Marvin Harrison Jr. But something like that to kind of shake up the play calling, break up the tendencies, especially if you get down the stretch where every play call becomes that much more important, you know, in the month of November.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It seems to rear its head even more in like short yardage and red zone. They've put themselves in some weird spots in the red zone where it's like, oh, we're definitely running on first down. And now it's, you know, if you had 1st and goal at the 9, it's 2nd and goal at the 10, or if it's 1st and 10 at the 12, now it's 2nd and 11 at the 13. And it's like, oh gosh, like you've really, now you're really behind things. But we did get a super chat here from Clawhammer. I don't have the tools to bring it up, so I'll just read it. It says Kate Stover didn't have a catch, but had his best game run blocking. I think that's probably right. I mean, I think there's been most games I've been able to, there we go. Most games we've been able to kind of go back and say, oh boy, Cade missed a block there on a key, you know, 3rd and short or on a key, you know, down in the game. And we didn't have that tonight. They got a lot of stuff out on the edge in the run game, which again is a testament to the tight end blocking. So yeah, that I would agree with that. We also got, this wasn't a super chat, but someone messaged at me, and yes, I can't believe we're just now getting to this. They ran a quarterback sneak multiple times tonight on 3rd and short. They ran it twice. Guess how many times they converted? Twice. It's unbelievable. They're 3 for 3 now on the season. They're batting 1,000. Let's just, until someone stops it like multiple times, let's just keep doing that. Let's just throw out the rest of the playbook on 3rd, 4th, less than a yard. Let's get our 225-pound quarterback moving with some momentum behind him. Got some big boys there up front, and push the pile. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. Here's some game stats, and kind of we talked about this earlier. You know, the total yard differential here. Really good balance from Ohio State. Again, you just hate the turnovers. This was a 30, 8 to 10 game, 38 to 7 game in disguise for me. Again, I didn't really feel that way last week, even though the offense had its struggles in the first half. I just felt that both teams was kind of really playing good defense, and it just, it was going to be one of those games where, first team to get to, 14, 15 points probably going to win the game. Tonight, I felt like this was a pretty lopsided matchup. Once the ball got rolling here tonight, it just looked like Ohio State was able to mostly do what it wanted offensively, as long as they didn't turn the ball over. And defensively, obviously, they played a tremendous game. And I think, even the Wisconsin total yards, first of all, 259 is a great number on a road game in Madison, but I think even that's even a little, you're getting some cheapies there at the end. You're kind of in bend but don't break, even more so than they have played this year. They're late in second half of the fourth quarter, so you're getting some cheapies there, some easy completions there for Wisconsin. So I thought this was a mismatch, a physical mismatch. And again, I think Ohio State's going to look at the film tomorrow and be like, man, and I think they already know it. I think Ryan Day realized that in post game, but I think they're going to look back and be like, yeah, we made this harder on ourselves than it needed to be.
I totally agree with you there. Look at the total yards and, 407, 260 or 259. How many times do you ever say Wisconsin? I know that the style of offense has changed here with Coach Fickle and Coach Longo, but 94 yards rushing from Wisconsin. I mean, that's as long as I can remember, that sounds like their first quarter, let alone for the total game. So that's just an incredible performance from the Ohio State defense up front. And again, no young quarterback, and he did make some impressive throws there, but only 165. And like you said, some of that was in super deep coverage. Hey, let's just get out of here and avoid a disaster type coverage. So again, really strong defensive performance. And again, like you said, I'll second your belief in that. When you put 400 yards up of total offense, that's a pretty good day offensively. But again, you have the 2 turnovers. We'll just say Wisconsin made a great play in the one when he undercut Marvin Harrison Jr. and give him, tip your hat on that one. But the forcing the ball into whatever that was when you could easily thrown it away. And, McCord has got to get out of this habit or not to get out of that habit, or let's say this, develop the habit of tucking that ball away. He did it later in the game, actually. We saw him do it. He saw the pressure was there. He clamped down on the ball, and he basically just dug in and tried to get back to the line of scrimmage. He'd had that one, and he had 2 intentional groundings. I mean, those are the things that, they're not counted as turnovers necessarily, but just talk about hidden lost yardage there that could end up flipping field position, flipping the game. You saw it almost cost them the Notre Dame game. If you think back a few weeks, there was one of those, much tighter, and we're kind of, wondering where it came from. But nonetheless, here's another intentional grounding, 2 tonight. Those are little things that add up that keep Ohio State from getting into that 38-10 victory. And here we are talking about 24, and, what's wrong? What are we missing here? Well, he still put up over 400 yards. So we're a lot closer to the answer than farther away when you're putting up those type of yards. But that's still something they're going to have to figure out to put some points on the board down the stretch here if they want to achieve the goals they want to achieve, come end of November for sure.
And I want to hit on the injuries real quick. But before we do that, we do have a super chat here from Ferris. It says, did OSU fail CJ or did CJ fail OSU? And you have to pick one. You can't say both. Well, CJ, only a lunatic would say CJ failed OSU. So by process of elimination, OSU failed CJ. And I would say, to narrow that down even a little more specifically, Ohio State's inability to field a competitive defense failed CJ. That's for me. I don't know if you agree, disagree, Devin.
No, I'll go with that. I go back to I'm not even going to touch on. I was going to like the comment I was going to make about the game last year and everything that's come out here lately. I'm leaving that alone. But yes, I'm with you. As good as CJ Stroud was, yeah, you had was it 2 touchdown lead or whatever it was, 10-point lead on Georgia with 7 minutes to go, whatever it was. You couldn't ask to be in better position, especially considering all the injuries that had occurred, during that game, let alone before it. So yeah, no, I'm in the CJ did everything he could, and then some to get Ohio State to a championship.
All right, one more real quick that we got in there as well. Go back to it. Ryan Dawes, how is it intentional grounding when a defender tips the pass? That's actually an interesting question. I would love to have the bylaws in front of me, but I think the notion that he was in the pocket and the ball, there was nobody on that side, even on that side of the field. So I think that's what they're going off of. But and then I guess the part of that, the other component of that is, and I have to look at the replay, was the ball out of Kyle's hand and tipped, or was his arm hit? I thought the ball was actually out of his hand and tipped, so I don't know if that changes things. I think that probably does. I think if you're getting hit as the ball is released and it just goes somewhere, I think you're okay. But I think the ball was released, hits a Wisconsin hand, arm, whatever it was, and falls lifelessly to the ground. Nowhere. I mean, there was nobody out there. I mean, he would have had to throw that thing 30, 40 yards. I think there was no receiver anywhere on that side of the field that I could see. So I think that's what the ruling was. Devin, do you have anything to change or add to that?
That's actually a great question. As I was watching it, I actually thought it was going to be called a fumble. So I was actually relieved that, or backwards pass, however you want to word it, fumble, backwards pass. I was actually relieved that they decided, hey, this is called intentional grounding, and just said, all right, let's punt and get out of here. But again, that is a great question, actually. And the only logical explanation I could attempt is he basically had turned himself like parallel to the line of scrimmage and was trying to throw it completely sideways and hit the defender's shoulder pad or something like that. And they called it grounding. But again, I thought it was going to be ruled a fumble. So I was actually just happy it was only called intentional grounding. Take the loss and get out of there.
And before we got two things I want to do very quickly before we turn it over to the Buckeye Weekly guys. Want to once again thank our sponsor, WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a better, allows you to sync all your sports books in one app. You can track all of your bets in one place. You can see your current action, your betting history, and your stats. You can also sign up for new sports books and collect bonus offers when they're available, all through the same app, which is WagerWire. You can follow, they have a great very active Twitter account. You can also follow them if you like to talk about sports, gambling, whatever it may be, at WagerWire on Twitter. And you can download the app in the App Store or the Play Store. And please use promo code BuckeyeHuddle, all one word. We would appreciate that. Lets them know that sponsoring us is sending them some traffic. So definitely helps us out on our end. As far as I want to do a quick injury update, and then we're going to throw it to Buckeye Weekly guys. Except people have been just swarming the comments with questions. So Julian Fleming, it was a shoulder. Came back in the game, so I think everything's fine. I think just took some dings on the shoulder, and obviously that's going to be a sensitive subject for Julian and those guys, just given what he's gone through over the year. So that one's fine. Lathan Ransom, Ryan Day did not provide an immediate post-game update. He kind of limped to the locker room at the very end. It didn't look serious. I haven't heard anything that it is serious, but that's, I guess, something to kind of keep an eye on here. Maybe see if Day has an update Tuesday. But I think that's about it. Obviously, we know McCord got rolled up on a little bit, and so that'll probably be something that's sore for a few days, and hopefully he's good to go next week. But it's the point of the schedule where it's like, hey, if someone's not at least 90 to 95%, I don't think the next 3 weeks you should be playing anyone that's not ready to go. So I think they've kind of gotten through that tough middle of the schedule that we all looked at the beginning of the year and said, well, that's the stretch. If something's going to really derail this for them, it's going to be that stretch right there. And so they've gotten through that. You got 3 games coming up they really should win. And, get healthy for that big game on November 25th, which I do believe is going to happen, folks. I know we're not dedicating the show to any more discussion of that for now, but I'm not convinced what everyone maybe wants to happen here with Michigan is actually going to happen before the game is actually played in a few weeks. I think if you're looking for the hammer to come down on Michigan, I think you're going to be waiting until after the season. So I'd be doing everything in my power to just get this group healthy, for the game in 4 weeks. But, oh, hey, and there's a photo. What? On that note, I think the weekly guys are having the Buckeye Week. Oh, okay, we're good. Buckeye Weekly guys, we're a little bit of internet issues. You guys good?
You tell us. I think we're okay. We were out
I
for
can
a
hear
second.
you.
Okay, good. So we are good. I want to thank Mark and Devin for handling the first portion of this. And welcome everybody to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here with Tom Orr, Kevin behind the camera. Tom, How's it going?
Boy, that was, of all of the football games, that was yet another football game. This is so weird to watch an Ohio State team where the offense is stumbling and bumbling, and like every once in a while you see these flashes of brilliance, and then they, step on another rake. And then, at least the defense, Tony, you can just rely on the defense. I said on Twitter, they used every single one of their skill points in short yardage on defense, and that was great. That worked out great for them. But this is just, they're unbeaten. They're entering November unbeaten. They have 3 very winnable games between them and an 11-0 versus 11-0 showdown with Michigan. But boy, oh boy, it is a very different look to this year's Ohio State team yet again.
Georgia won a national championship this way a little bit last year with just enough offense and really good defense. This kind of reminds me of the Kentucky game, just an ugly win on the road. And any win in Madison, Wisconsin at night is not ugly. You take it and you run and you put it on the fridge and you say, look at my beautiful win at Wisconsin.
It is a B- you hang on the fridge for sure.
Like, this is my D student getting a B-. Not that the Buckeyes are a D student, but you'll take it. Because as we talked about earlier in the day, it's better than the 2003 loss. It's better than the 2010 loss. It's 14 points, and it could have been more. And we continue to say that about these games. It could have been more, but still 14 points. You'll take that. So we've got
we've got a bunch of super chats. Let's start punching those up from Ryan Dawes. How is it intentional grounding when a defender tips the pass?
That is, if that's the second time it's happened this season. I don't know. We didn't get to see a bunch of replays, but if the refs don't think there is somebody in the area, they're gonna flag it. And this happened a few games ago from McCord where they got batted down at the line, and I guess the ref didn't think there's anybody near it, so he's like, grounding.
Is there a quota they have to hit? They have to call a certain number, and it's the weirdest thing. It's not like this is one of those point of emphasis rules. It's just Kyle McCord gets called for 1 to 2 intentional groundings every single week, and part of that is offensive line that he doesn't trust, and sometimes the guys aren't open. I think he has to get more comfortable with just set your feet and sail 6 feet over the receiver's head, 10 yards out of bounds. You can do it that way. He's been underthrown a bunch of stuff. It feels like he just doesn't trust his arm right now. I don't know. And he came up limping again after that scramble. I had sort of thought he looked maybe like his, sprained ankle or something a couple weeks ago. And again, maybe it's a little bit of a not driving off that back leg kind of thing or something.
But it's not it's his front leg.
Oh, his front leg,
So, but Ryan Day said in the postgame he doesn't think it's the nicks and the nags and the injuries that are holding him back from throwing some bad passes or from throwing better passes. It's just, he didn't say what it was, but it's it's mechanics, it's all of that, and even on the early on the quick throw out wide that was skipped to Marvin or whomever, like he'll have a couple of those, 1 or 2 of those a game, but when he's hitting, like he had 3 perfect passes, 3 downfield passes before his interception, one off of Julian Fleming's face, another one that was Travion Henderson right off his hands, and then the one to Marvin that was completed, and then he follows that up with perhaps maybe the worst pass of his career, the worst decision of his career, the interception in the end zone. But
that was not a great.
And Ryan Day talked about those 2 interceptions as well, and I'm sure everybody saw that 20 minutes ago.
There were a couple that were just like, I know it's your first year starting, but you've got to make a better decision than that. And I think this is 2 weeks in a row where Ryan Day has managed the end of the first half like he doesn't entirely trust his quarterback. Last week it was just taking a knee and not taking an opportunity to drive. This time it was Wisconsin has the ball inside inside the 5, like 1st and goal to 1 or whatever it was, and he's not calling timeouts. Like you could have called timeouts after each of those plays and got the ball back with a minute and a half left, whatever the clock was, and he didn't do it. Like he is he can say what he wants, but you look at how he manages those kinds of situations, you can tell he is not 100% comfortable with Kyle McCord right now.
He's calling a timeout of C.J. Stroud or Justin Fields are his quarterback. Now, he relies on his defense, and he can be more conservative because of that. But this wasn't a defensive decision because you're already backed up. Like, this was a decision that, well, let's just get to halftime, which I think coaches love to do on the road when they're winning.
Yeah, for sure. Super chat from Mike Smith. Strong agree with the first sentence here. Henderson looked great. Trevion Henderson looked. I mean, this was the. What's been wrong with the rushing game? Well, they have not had Trevion Henderson for several weeks. Strangers say Cade Stover did not get a target. We were talking about that right before we went on. Like, it just in the middle of the second quarter, it was like, it's weird. I don't think Cade Stover's had a catch yet, and he didn't have a target all night. The Kyle Driver worked twice in short yardage. It was very interesting to watch Ohio State run a trick play on 3rd and 1, running a quarterback sneak. McCord had a bad day, yes, and the grounding penalties are taking opportunities for points away. They're not a turnover, but it's like a holding penalty, but worse, because not only do you get the yardage, but also you lose the down. So you think about how often a penalty from the offensive line will derail a drive. A grounding penalty is, sometimes that's kind of caused by the offensive line, but that's even worse because you lose the down too.
Now, Trevion Henderson, what we've talked about before the game and all week long is what you not that you can't have, but what you really don't want is for him to have the bulk of his carries or bulk of his yards on like one carry, because it's kind of fool's gold, and it's empty calories where 100 of your yards came on 60 a 160-yard carry. But he had some long runs, but he was also consistent, and he had 3 carries of over 20 yards and nothing longer. 33-yard touchdown was his long. So these are good chunk plays and consistent, and he had 4 or 5 carries over 10 yards, and then he also had a 30-yard catch. So he had over 200 yards of total offense. But the consistency, the ahead of schedule, and just the ability to pick up 2 first downs in 1 carry several times is so underrated, and that is more important. Like, what he did today was more important than what he did against Notre Dame in terms of it was better. I wonder, we'll go look at his efficiency rating and his success rate. I'm sure he had a much better day than at the Notre Dame game, but he was making guys miss. He was making defenders miss, and he was running hard, and you can tell he's a guy that has wanted to be out there. He did mention what happened or why he's been out. He said early on in the Notre Dame game, somebody took a cheap shot on him, and so that's why he's been out. Even though he went through in 14 carries for 104 yards against Notre Dame, so he toughed that one out. But it's one of those things that when they weren't giving him the ball, it was almost like, why aren't you giving him the ball? And that was great to see.
Yeah, well, that game felt like I thought at one point during the game, I need to figure out what the yards per play on rushes by Trevion Henderson, pass attempts to Trevion Henderson, and pass attempts to Marvin Harrison Jr. was as compared to literally anything else they ran. And yards per rush was 6.8 for Trevion Henderson. Yards per reception or per target for Trevion Henderson was like 9. Yards per target for Marvin Harrison was 12.3. So, 12.3 and 9 and 6.8. You're in the 6.8 is a bigger chunk of that, but you're probably averaging 7.5 to 8 yards on plays where Trevion Henderson or Marvin Harrison was the intended target, and the average yards per play was 5.9. So it's probably like 7.5 to like 5 or so. I mean, this is real rough math in my head, but you should be getting those guys the ball more, right? I mean, I don't want to oversimplify things, but if you have literally Marvin Harrison Jr., it feels like 10 targets is a lot. It's also not enough. Like, he had 16 last week. Like, it feels like the best version of this Ohio State team is throwing the ball to Marvin Harrison 15 times, or you are forcing the other team to just dedicate 2 guys to him. If he's one-on-one, he should be getting the ball twice a game.
Well, and Day said that they probably could have thrown to him more, but he was.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, he was 10 of their 23 targets. And he's one of their 5 eligible receivers. But
are we everyone gets a medaling?
No,
or are we
no.
trying to win
a
football game?
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying there's when you're running the ball as well as they did, that's going to create fewer,
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, if they're running the ball for 6.8 yards per attempt for Travion Henderson and 7.3 yards per attempt for Xavier Johnson, like, yes, by all means, continue doing that.
But 10
by all means, continue running Xavier Johnson on the sweep to the field side, because guess what? He has more room. He has areas where he can. And I know you can't just do that, but all the stuff that we've kind of been going like, why don't they do it? And then it's like, oh, that worked. How about that? Super chat from Mike Smith. Shouldn't there be a hot route when they show zero blitz? Kyle has done this every week, but I believe one took an opportunity for points away.
Well, no, there are. You just have to recognize them, and the receiver has to recognize it as well. So I wonder how the communication is going there. The great thing about blitzes is sometimes you don't see them. So if you don't see the blitz, you're not going to know there's a hot route to see. So that's an awareness thing. And it may not just be Kyle, maybe the receiver as well. And the back trying to pick somebody up, the offensive lineman who just watches them go by. I think there's a lot of issues in there.
I do want to address. I'm looking at the camera and then I'm looking down at the return on YouTube. I don't know why we both look like Violet Beauregard on YouTube.
Gee, wow.
I promise Tony and I have not both turned purple. We're not doing our Brian Kelly impressions.
This is
I know
great.
the lighting here is a little wonky or something.
I'm so furious right now at these refs.
Murphy Serafino says QB sneak McCord push batting 1,000. Yeah, you saw, I think, some of the reason why they don't want to do that, because you have no Devin Brown for some amount of time in the future, and Kyle McCord didn't run it very much. He had a 5-yard run where he got hurt, and then you're QB pushing and you're running right into the middle of the line. If Kyle McCord, if something happens to Kyle McCord and it becomes Tristan Gebbia time, this is, I know there were a lot of people in my mentions. Like I just posted a picture of Lincoln Keenholz on the field before the game, and every time I looked at my phone during the game, it was just like people. It was just the responses were just like, put him in. It was like, I assure you, I have not seen Lincoln Keenholz throw a football in any kind of meaningful, situation. But I can assure you, if he's the third stringer right now, there is a reason he's the third stringer. He's a true freshman who didn't go through spring ball. He is, they are very high on him. He is going to be the answer at some point. That point is not right now. He is a true freshman who did not go through spring ball.
Yeah, I asked Marvin Harrison on Wednesday about Lincoln Keenholz because he's battling now to be the backup quarterback. So I wanted to know what the receivers thought of him. He's like, well, he doesn't really throw much to me, because like I'm a starter.
It's
so.
Kyle McCord. He's been on the
scout
team sometimes.
But now they've moved him up, but still there's not this, he doesn't get many reps with the starters. So that's not something that, just that kind of the connection that they have not built that up yet. But in that first half, I don't think Tristan Gebbia could have played worse than Kyle McCord turning the ball over 3 times.
Yeah, that was not. And we've heard. I saw a comment on there at some point about, does Day preach ball security with Kyle McCord? I promise you, he is preaching. Sometimes, sometimes the people sitting in the pews don't do what the preacher says.
Well, that's why you shouldn't allow phones in church. I'm just saying.
The ball security is like officially a problem now, and because they're just. At some point, it stops being a coincidence. Like at some point, it's like, it's on the offensive line, but also like you gotta. Well, at some point, you got to get the ball out. Like I don't know what to tell you.
Especially if you know the offensive line may not protect you all that well, you need to be even more secure.
Yeah, like at some point, this goes from being an offensive line problem to a Kyle McCord problem, and I think we have crossed that point now. So you gotta figure it out.
Yeah, and we talked about that with JJ McCarthy last year. It was either an interception or putting the ball on the ground. At least once a game, he would put the ball on the ground. You can't do that on the road in Big Ten. The fact that they were -2 on the turnovers and still won by 2 touchdowns, is pretty remarkable. But also tells you that they weren't being overly challenged by this Wisconsin offense that had 2 drives all game.
No, I mean turnovers 3-1, defensive points off of turnovers 3-3.
Yeah.
I mean, so Wisconsin it's a Big Ten West team, so therefore they can't make you pay for any of your mistakes. So it's fine. Ohio State does have to play some Big Ten East teams coming up, particularly one Big Ten East team coming up in a few weeks. So, a lot of these games, the moral of the story of a lot of these games is, well, you're not going to be able to get away with that against Michigan. And it feels like that's been the takeaway from like 6 of the games so far this year. Like, well, they won, and that's good. And there seems to be a gradual trend of improvement. And we said before the game, boy, if you see them run consistently, we said this on the Friday night show when they were arriving in Madison. If you see them run consistently and they're moving the chains, and you're averaging 5.5, 6 yards a carry, and you're not doing it because of an 80-yard run, like that's really encouraging. And they averaged 6.8 yards for Trevian Henderson and 7.3 for Xavier Johnson without a monster carry. All of this is very positive. But you're now 28 days away from the Michigan game, 27 and a half days away from the Michigan game, and there is some stuff that's going to have to get figured out between now and then.
I had a Michigan fan tweet at me who has watched our show previously around halftime saying something like, Michigan is going to murder Kyle McCord. And I'm sure that was the common sentiment as Michigan fans are watching this, but
do you think he saw signs indicating that?
There were signs that were indicating it for sure, and there were also some costumes. Some Wisconsin and Ohio State fans dressed up as Michigan recruiting assistants.
The Wisconsin camera people put a Wisconsin student who was wearing like head to toe Michigan stuff with a big like cardboard, like old timey film camera. It was, this is not just an Ohio State punchline. Ryan Dawes says, I know you haven't done the rewatch yet, but did Wisconsin blitz 75% of the time or what?
Did they blitz a lot?
I don't know. Ask one of the people in the press box who had a much better view of that than me on the field.
I don't know that they blitz more than they normally do. But there's just so much stuff happening that I wish I could give you a better answer than that. Other than I was talking to Kevin too much.
Mike.
We were having a good time.
Mike Farino.
It was nice and warm.
You know what? It was not too bad on the field. I'm just wearing like a long sleeve t-shirt and a hoodie. I had another layer that I brought. Like, well, I'm certainly gonna have to put this on at some point, and never put it on. My hands got a little chilly, but it was really, really not that bad. It never got below the high 30s, so it was fine. Mike Farino says, tuning in late, it seemed so weird that they never attempted to throw the ball to Stover. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
You might have a better idea on this. Was that a real point of emphasis for Wisconsin to take Cade Stover away? Because he was such a big part of the game plan last year for Ohio. I think he had 2 touchdowns against Wisconsin last year, and they did not even have a target. I assumed that was like Wisconsin playing like box and one on it or something.
It sure felt like they were concerned about Cade Stover, and they didn't want him picking up chunk yardage down the middle. But I was also, I don't know that they drew one thing up, that touchdown or the first interception was supposed to go to a tight end. So I don't know if that's supposed to go to Cade or G. Scott, and it got blown up. And there are some other plays that got blown up that maybe were intended for the tight end. But, I was waiting for like a bootleg or something that we always see to the tight end. There's nothing like that. Maybe they're not doing any boots right now because Kyle McCord has a bad ankle.
Yeah.
So they don't want him running more than they have to. But, Tom, the year of the tight end, I was shocked that your starting tight end did not get a catch. And it was something we kept watching throughout the game. And it was something like, I'm expecting this now, because this feels like where Cade Stover is going to finally, break free. And it's like one of these things that they're just rope-a-doping until they finally hit him. And it didn't.
Yeah. A couple catches for G. Scott. He had one, I think, that went for a first down. That was a big catch, but yeah, no catches for Cade Stover was deeply, deeply weird. Clawhammer says Stover didn't have a catch, but he had his best game run blocking. I mean,
you'll take that.
I think did the whole offensive line offense as a unit have their best game run blocking, or was that just Trevian Henderson being back?
I don't know if it's the entire offensive line unit. I think there's still some struggles, but between the outside runs in terms of B gaps and things like that, maybe not necessarily the A gap, but getting it outside a little bit, still between the tackles, but just hitting things quicker and and they also ran to the field at times, and they seem to continue to be honing their what they do best and then homing in on what they do best and putting that together. And but having Trey back is huge because he hits stuff that the others can't, and then he makes moves to make guys miss that others can't. Now, Chip Trainum had a couple of nice plays, like a third down catch, making a guy miss. And so they got some good contributions from him, but nobody is Travion Henderson. And he says he's full go. Rob Aller asked him, are you ever fully healthy? Which,
depending on the tone you ask that question with.
No, it was like, are you 100%? He's like, yes, 100%. And Rob was like, are you ever? And not in a.
I know.
But,
yes,
but
Rob's a wonderful human being.
But it's like Travion could have taken it the wrong way, but he totally didn't.
Yeah. So super chat from Mike Smith, just explaining this is Mike apologizing to us. Apologize if you guys have to read the same messages twice. One was from Devin. I just got it in too late, so we'll be repetitive. No problem. We appreciate we get great questions on the show. We appreciate the super chats, so no need to apologize. We appreciate you guys. Glad to have you here, as you guys are an important part of the show.
The more questions that you ask,
behind Tony and I would say the listeners and the viewers are the most important part of the show.
Oh, first you listed me first though.
It's alphabetical. I mean, reverse alphabetical.
I could take you guys right off the air right now.
You could.
Kevin also has some importance.
Marte Marshall. Tom, it was great meeting you in person pregame. I was like running up the ramp to go, and
this was before you somebody ate it.
No, this is. We'll tell that story later. We'll tell that story later. Yeah, if we get like $300 for the super chats, I'll tell everyone a super embarrassing story about something that happened to me on the field today. But yeah,
Kevin,
Marte.
how much you got, Kevin?
I got to meet Marte as with like running up to the photo room, and someone stopped me and just talk to him for just a couple seconds. But always, if you see us, please say hi. We really do love meeting you guys and talking to you guys.
No eye contact.
So just look at Tony's shoes. Just stare at his shoes at all times.
What are those?
No, it was always. Sometimes we have time to talk. Sometimes during the game, we're like sprinting from one place to another. But
if you see the 1,000-yard stare, maybe just. Feel free to say hello. Yeah,
I'm sure I look like if I'm like running from one place to another, I'm sure I look like a crazy person. I promise I won't yell at you. Crazier. Mike says, if Ransom is out for a few weeks, who steps up in his place? Well, it seemed like they moved Sonny Styles to the bandit at times. So, and then you put Jordan Hancock at the nickel. I'm guessing that's going to be the long-term solution.
Yeah, well, Jihad Carter is out as well. So
right.
Who knows what his situation is. If you guys watched the stream, if not, Ryan Day didn't have anything. I asked him about Lathan. He said doesn't know anything. Lathan Ransom did come back out after going to the locker room,
and was smiling during Carmen, Ohio. So you can read anything or nothing into that.
Yeah, but it was interesting because a couple of plays or a series, Josh Proctor was out and Sonny Styles was at free safety. I don't know if there was something with Josh or they just wanted to see it. Yeah. But then when Lathan was out, it was Sonny Styles at strong safety at that bandit, and he says he's comfortable there, and we haven't seen proof that he's not at this point. Jordan Hancock was talking about how they saw more 4 receiver sets than they were expected, but it was okay. But they had also put in kind of a new dime package.
Yeah.
And
it felt like we saw much more Cam Martinez than I was expecting in that dime package.
Yeah, it did not go great. That dime package didn't go great. And they were throwing some blitzes in there as well to try to create some chaos, but they picked up a 3rd and 12 against that, like 19 yards, and they picked up another first down when they went to that. And that's also a product of not having Jihad Carter perhaps, but also I wonder if they'll look at that and keep it, but maybe you go Jermaine Matthews rather than Cam Martinez.
And if not, then maybe it's time, Tony, to drop the dime.
Kevin, take us off the air.
That's a thing. Anyway, Jordan Kapler says someone needs to sit Ryan Day down and tell him to quit telling the team it's going to be a 4-quarter game. Then maybe it won't be. And I mean, there have been several games this year where I've thought, it's whatever. Tonight it was like it's 10-0 in the second quarter, and boy, there's like it's 10-0 and there's 6 minutes left in the second quarter or whatever it is. And if they just get one stop here and get one score, this thing's going to be over at halftime, because that was a Wisconsin team that you could just you watch the Wisconsin offense in the first half, and it was like, well, you can give them 17 quarters, and they are not going to figure out the passing game. And if they're down 17 points, they're not going to be able to run the ball. So they needed like one more score, and it would have been okay. Everyone's kind of like, you got to play the second half for TV reasons, but contractually you have to play the whole game, but functionally the game is largely over if Ohio State's up 3 scores. And they just can't get that one more stop or get that, punch in that touchdown. Boy, oh boy, though, that stop by the defense at the end of the first half, on the flip side of that, for Wisconsin to have first and goal at the 1 and then kick a field goal. That was, Luke Fickell throwing the ball on first and goal from the 1 was like a kind of a wow for me. Like that was, worked. It almost worked. Almost. That was a wow for me, because boy, that's a little bit of an acknowledgement. Like, hey, Ohio State's kind of whooping your butt on the offense, on the line right now.
Yeah, they lost Braylon Allen on that series.
Right.
Yeah, they did. Yes.
And Braylon Allen was out, and then watching them take the field to start the third quarter, like, where's zero, and never saw him. But that was a really good goal line stand, and fueled them and let them know that they built their confidence up for sure.
It fueled them, except then Wisconsin went right down the field.
Right. And that's I'm just telling you what they told us.
Yeah. Well, they had drives of 12 plays, 51 yards, and 7 plays, 75 yards back to back, right around sandwiched around halftime, and then other than that, they had one drive longer than 25 yards all game.
Yeah, and that touchdown drive featured like 2 of their longest plays, the 20 whatever scramble by Locke, I think, and then there's another catch and missed tackle that picked up some yards.
Yeah, that was a 29-yard scramble by Braden Locke, who finished with 14 yards rushing.
Yeah,
that's that was kind of how that game. I have not looked at the defensive stats page yet. It felt like they had 2 sacks. It felt like they had more. 4 tackles for loss. Late. It felt like they had more. Well, no, Jordan Hancock had one relatively early, and then Tyleik Williams had one kind of middle of the game. I don't think those were super early, but he just, for a team that only got 2 sacks and was only 4 tackles for loss and 1 quarterback hurry, it felt like he was under assault all night. It constantly felt like there was someone pressuring Braden Locke. The defense has just been really disruptive. They probably got away with a couple penalties that should have been called. The Tommy Eichenberg hit out of bounds was not a smart football play. There was a play where Denzel Burke was grabbing the receiver's left arm the whole way down the field, and then never turned his head and got hit in the back of, and then right in the nameplate on the back of the crowd with the football. The crowd was not. The crowd had some moments when I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about." Like the Ohio State jumped off sides and got back on sides, and they're booing. It's like, well, you can do that. That's fine. There were a couple that was like, I think the angry people have something of a point here. But you'll have that. Mike Smith, yes. So for Mike Smith, who is I think setting a high score, we appreciate it.
He wants to hear your story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. You have to keep track of how close we are.
Told there's no math.
If I'm not mistaken, Mike Smith says he's had a grounding penalty every week but one. We were dangerously close to 220 and 220. Also, if you're not a follower of the bold prediction show that Tony and I have done for years, I have forever had Ohio State rushes for 220 yards and Ohio State passes for 220 yards. I have predicted that at least a dozen times, and it has absolutely never hit for me. Tony's done it like 3 times, and it has hit like twice for him. It is my white whale. It is a source of unending annoyance for me.
You just got to know when it's going to happen.
Ohio State. Oh, is that?
That's all.
See, this is the kind of analysis that this is why you get the big bucks. The Buck. 181 yards for Ohio State, 226 yards passing, 181 on the ground. So
sack adjusted 210.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, really almost. And yeah, he says Marv is the best player in the country. I don't disagree.
Ryan Day said he was.
Well, then Ryan Day should probably stop taking him off the field and throwing him short. I asked Ryan Day about that in the middle of the week at the press conference on Tuesday, and he sort of said, well, sometimes we got to do it. Like, we're going to keep evaluating, and it's 3rd and 1, and they take him off the field, and they load it up, and, look at all the big bodies we have, and the run gets stuffed. And it's like, well, but if it's me, and I really don't want to oversimplify this, but what if you just split him to the field side every single time? And you make them either have a Marvin Harrison one-on-one, which is just an automatic. If you see that, you throw that. And I don't care what you do. Whatever you want to throw it to Marvin Harrison one-on-one. Or you make them put a safety over there, and then you have a numbers advantage. I know football is very complicated. I recognize that I do not know 10% about as much of football as the coaching staff. I can do math. I know Marvin Harrison is a good football player who's probably going to win more one-on-one situations. Like, you don't have to do it the way you want to do it to prove a point. You could just have the best player in the country out on the field, because that will make the opposing defense stressed out, and that's what you're looking for.
You don't think it helps Ohio State to remove a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison and bring in a defensive end?
I would speculate that is not something that the defensive coaches are up in the box and going, oh, no, not that. Don't put in the no disrespect to Caden Curry, no disrespect to G. Scott or whoever else you're putting in to be a big body. But
I'd say don't take Marvin off the field and replace him with Carnell Tate.
If Marvin Harrison is healthy and he seems like he's in relatively good shape. It seems like he could probably just play like 60 snaps or whatever. If he is healthy and he does not, he is not out of breath, like, he should probably just not leave the field, because it seems like a lot of your best offensive plays come either directly from him or while he's out on the field, and people are going, hey, there's Marvin Harrison. Oh, something went the other way.
Yeah, and we'll get to the next super chat. I just think with Travion and Marvin Harrison, and once Emeka gets back, like, that kind of security blanket for the offense when things don't always have to go well, to know that they'll go good enough when you get those 3 guys. And right now with Travion and Marvin, they have that. Then you add another guy, and it's, I'm not expecting the 44, 45 points per game, but there will be quarters where when you need that drive, they'll be able to get it.
There was we got a question here in our private chat. Did Emeka try to play and get hurt in the first series? I don't think I saw Emeka Abuka out there. No, right?
Ryan Day said they chose to hold him out another week.
Okay.
And hopefully he'll be back next week.
Okay.
But he was available.
Okay.
But
Aren't
they
we all?
ruled him out before the game.
That sounds like two contradictory things.
No, it's not.
Mike Smith says, after a day where Penn State almost lost to Indiana, Oklahoma lost to Kansas, and UNC lost to Georgia Tech, I'll take a win with things to clean up. And this is, you have reached the point of the season where it is just win baby time, and just win baby extends to the Saturday after Thanksgiving. You got to just win baby that one too, and there's work to do between now and then. But ugly wins are wins too. That is the name of the game right now, because now there is no longer. We were watching. We had College Game Day on the TV while we were doing the live show on Saturday morning, and there was a segment where it was like, well, all 5 conferences have an unbeaten team. Which conference is going to get left out? Well, bad news, Big 12. You no longer have an unbeaten team. So now all you have to do is you win out, and you can argue with how the committee is going to decide how whether the committee should just take the 4 unbeatens. But if there are 4 unbeaten conference champions, Power 5 conference champions, guess what? Those are the 4 teams in. So Ohio State is now, a beat Rutgers, beat Michigan State, beat Minnesota, beat Michigan, beat whatever sad sack Big Ten West team you have to play. You're 5 wins away from the college football playoff, and you're 7 wins away from a national championship. So, that is not a bad position to be in.
No, this is October 28th. Nobody's going to care about the score of this 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, late November, December. This isn't something where you're like, oh, they only won by 14 at Wisconsin, and so now they've, we should drop them like this. you move on immediately. You're like a cornerback. You have no memory of what the recent score was. As long as you won, that's all that matters.
Yep. Next one from Ferris. This is something that
basically we've had a little bit of some trolling from other Michigan posters in the chat thread. And Ferris, who's been a longtime viewer, is pretty level-headed, and we've been talking about the investigation and everything. So, I'll say, who's writing your chat comments? Well, it's me. Read them. Most of us fans try to be objective, love your show. So Ferris has been a great viewer. He tries to remain objective, and I wanted to make sure that we punched through his super chat.
All right. So, yes. So, yeah. And, Michigan had no game this week. So, and there hasn't really been any other things for Michigan fans to think about this week. So I'm sure they enjoyed the Ohio State game. Mark Fetter says, has Kyle McCord reached his ceiling? I don't think so. No.
No, he better not.
Well, no, but I mean, I feel like he has a stronger arm than we've seen. It feels like a lot of stuff is getting underthrown right now. He's consistently missing short. You're not ever seeing him overshoot stuff. He has a strong arm. We have seen him showcase a strong arm. I think he's just not healthy right now.
Well, and he can make those out routes from one hash to the opposite sideline. Those are long throws that he makes on those out routes, and he can hit those. It's just he's not consistent. And the consistency, he will become more consistent. I don't know how consistent he will get, but he can get a lot better, and I expect him to get better. But I'm not going to lie, watching him in the first half, you're thinking there is going to be a quarterback competition after this season.
Yeah,
I would expect him to still win it, but
the fact that you're talking about a third-year Ohio State quarterback coming back for a fourth year, you haven't seen that in a while. That has been C.J. Stroud was here for 3 years. Dwayne Haskins was here for 3 years. I mean, it has been going back to J.T. Barrett that you had a fourth-year Ohio State quarterback. And, who knows? I mean, I don't think anyone was envisioning how the Cardale Jones experience went at this point in the 2014 season. So, again, there's 7 games. There's a lot of time.
But no quarterback, unless they're no good, reaches their ceiling this early in their starting career.
This is only his 9th career start. There's time. You got to be a little bit patient. You'd like to see more tangible progress, I think, but there's the talent is there.
I think that one of the biggest problems is he's following the 3 greatest quarterbacks in Ohio State history, and he's being judged against them. Whereas he was 17 of 26 for 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Ryan Day said, yeah, the first one was bad, and Kyle knew exactly why it happened. The second one, he's like, there was a cover 3. The quarterback came off of his man and basically just made a really good play on something he shouldn't have. You wouldn't expect a corner to drop off his man to go and steal one like that. So he's like, it's not great, but it's understandable. But this is a very standard Ohio State quarterback performance prior to Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, and C.J. Stroud. The interceptions are high, yes, but 65% completion. You do look. Some of these throws are like oof, ugh. And I remember when we watched a couple of years ago. We watched the 2016 Michigan game. We watched it. Did a watch along on YouTube, and you see how far the quarterback position has come in terms of the throwing at Ohio State, because there were some throws where it's like, boy, it's been a couple of years since we saw some bad throws like that. And now we're seeing some throws that are like, boy, it's been a while since we've seen some inaccuracy like that. But we will say C.J. Stroud early in his career was throwing high until his shoulder got right. You know, and then, but I just think the quarterback play at Ohio State has been so high. It's going to be very difficult for McCord to maintain that. It's like, how do you maintain Ohio State's level of head coaches from Jim Tressel to Urban Meyer to Ryan Day? It's very difficult, and you can't expect to. But 8 games into this season, he's, you would expect, you would hope that there would be such ebbs and flows. But I think that's normal for most quarterbacks. It's just Ohio State hasn't had most quarterbacks.
Right. Ohio State has not had. Ohio State Ryan Day a couple weeks ago talked about, if you're a quarterback and, it's like you bring home an A on an algebra test, and once you bring home an A, then everyone, your parents expect you to bring home an A every time. Ryan Day has been on the honor roll for his quarterback play since he got to Columbus, and especially since 2018. And this year, it's just the expectation is always, this new guy is going to be at least as good as the old guy. And Justin Fields was probably as good or better overall as Dwayne Haskins. And CJ Stroud was probably by the end as good or better than Justin Fields. This is not the end for Kyle McCord. This is, Kyle McCord has not had to take the final exam yet. But that's the line does not always go up. This is not the stonks me. Like at some point, the market resets a little bit. And this is not the crash of 29. This is just like a little market correction where, okay, the line does not perpetually go up. So everyone just needs to be diamond hands here and just hold on and hang on. And at some point, the line is going to continue to go up, but you got to be a little bit patient. One thing that I just was pulling up, Ohio State rushed like crazy against Wisconsin. Best running game we've seen from this team probably all season. A stat that I've cited a bunch of times from collegefootballnerds.com. They do a relative performance metric. So how does your team perform against opponents compared to how opponents do on average against everyone else? So if you're playing terrible teams and you shut them down, the standard stats will say, oh, you're amazing. And if you're just doing what everyone else is doing, then this stat is going to say you're average. Wisconsin in that is 95th in the country against the run, as in terms of run defense. So they're one of the worst, they're one of the worst teams in the country in terms of run defense in that stat. They're 21st in the country against the pass. So this was a team that, Ohio State, it makes sense that Ohio State was able to run the ball against this Wisconsin team. And it makes sense that that Wisconsin team defended the pass relatively well. I mean, they defended Marvin Harrison reasonably well at times too.
Yeah.
But Desmond said that Wisconsin doesn't give up a lot of yards on the ground. And then that's Desmond.
Well, that's wrong.
If you want to start any sentence with Desmond said, you need to do it in a super chat, and the number needs to be at least $50.
Because Illinois, like we talked about in the morning, Illinois rushed for 200. A couple of other teams have rushed for 200. Purdue around that number. So I thought that this was possible. But what was, like I said earlier, what was good to see is the consistency of the running game and Travion Henderson.
Yeah, and next super chat from Mike Farino. McCord was not good enough tonight, and not sure if this was a discussion earlier in the show, but in the game thread, there was not much discussion that McCord was effectively without two starting wide receivers after Fleming went down. No, Fleming came back. There was Fleming, in the second half. Okay, he went down the first time, and I thought, oh, that looks bad, because he's had shoulder issues that we've talked about, and he's had shoulder surgery. It looked like that right shoulder was out again, like he was kind of dangling that arm, and then he came back, and then it was like a hip the second time or something like that. He had a couple like hard falls, and it just like if you look at the right shoulders didn't look right. And so I don't know. Last year he talked about having to pop it back in. I am not a doctor. I'm just looking and thinking like that maybe it's the shoulder again. But no Abeka Ibuka, no Julian Fleming. Cade Stover not in the game. It was kind of Marvin Harrison and Travion Henderson for the most part in the passing game. They were down a receiver and a half, you want to say, and that does play a part in this in McCord's play obviously as well.
Yeah, no catches from your slot receivers, and now they would put some move Marvin in there, but like no catch from Xavier Johnson. And no Emeka Ibuka, obviously. So you're down quite a bit when you're without your top two guys or two of your top three, and they're doing such a good job on Cade Stover. But when you do all of that, and if you want to leave Marvin one-on-one, as Marv said in there on his touchdown, they got man cover, they got one-on-one coverage, and they felt pretty good about the matchup.
Really? Why?
Because it was one-on-one coverage.
So if you have Marvin Harrison one-on-one, you should throw him the football. Is that what
I'm saying? Yes,
okay.
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
I'm not a doctor though.
I didn't want to, overcomplicate things. Ryan Dawes says, piggyback from Mark's question, was this mistake-riddled game a good thing for McCord to grow and play better next week? I mean, coaches love a game where you win, but you got lots of film to teach off of. They're going to have lots of film to teach off of. It's just a matter of, does, guys talk about all the time, taking the meeting room to the practice field, how much does he learn from it? And there are opportunities for learning. How much does that translate to what happens on the field?
Well, the positive thing, as Ryan Day was saying, is that Kyle knew what he did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
However, you're doing it and you're knowing, like, I shouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it anyway. When that play, the first interception was designed for the tight end and he got blown up, the Badger guys were running the routes on those in the end zone, and you got two receivers there, two defenders there. There's nothing available. And I realized that Marvin Harrison is somewhere in there, but he, that throw was always going to be intercepted or knocked down. It was never going to be caught. That should have just been thrown away. But it is something, if you don't learn from it, you're this is one of those like history things, you're doomed to repeat it, but that you have to learn from that. And the concerning thing, though, is maybe you should have already learned that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most concerning thing there. And the second one, the good news is that he can come off the field and tell Day why he did what he did and why he knows that was wrong, and not just because, well, it got intercepted. And like they can talk football, you know, and it's not like with a freshman who, I don't know what I saw. Kyle McCord knows what he saw and why he did it, what he did, and why it didn't work. Mm-hmm. So he has that kind of understanding. It's just sometimes you need to, when you're pulling the trigger, aim it somewhere else and throw it away. Brian Day talking about Justin Fields, just throw it away. And so there's, although when Kyle McCord throws it away, it's intentional grounding.
Yeah, and I go back to Justin Fields, like that first year, he would throw it away. He ended up, 41 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But, I think at the time people said, well, you're throwing it away too much. And then Kyle McCord throws a couple picks, and it's like, well, you're not throwing it away enough. And, whatever you're doing is never the right answer unless you score a touchdown in every play. So that's just kind of how it is.
And Day talked about that as well, where, it's disappointing he left points out there. But also said, we don't maybe give enough credit to the defenses out there. Mm-hmm. Luke Fickell, obviously a very good defensive coach. So it's okay to give the opponent some credit, but I don't know if it's okay for the fans to do the same. It's always Ohio State's fault for a lot of people, but still, the decisions are the problem. I think, for the most part.
Super chat for Mike Farino. How does the game flow change if Henderson catches the touchdown throw just before the first interception? I feel like a score there could have caused a blowout.
Well, you said that sort of earlier that if they get 17 points now. This morning we were asked to predict the halftime scores. And I think, Kevin, you nailed it 10-3, right?
No, I think I said 10-0.
You said 10-3.
Yeah, I think I said 10-3.
And I was going to say 10-3, so I had to go 17-3 because you said 10-3.
Yeah.
And I feel like this could have been very easily 17-3.
Yeah.
And it probably should have been.
Yeah, and this is the play that Mike is asking about. It was that's how much they missed it by.
It's a tough catch for a running back.
It's a tough catch for a running back, and it was overthrown by.
But it hit his hands.
I don't. Did it?
Yeah.
Maybe that bounced off his hand. Oh, it bounced off of his hands. Okay. Yeah, that's a tough catch. That's a tough catch for anyone because that's that's like a Willie Mays catch where you're running and it's coming straight over your head. But that's a big time throw to get that in there, and then it's just a matter of catching it. But yeah, it felt like the whole first half. Ohio State was on the verge of putting the game away early.
Yeah.
And then they just couldn't quite do it. And it was that one goes off his hands and they end up throwing the pick. They were up 10-0 at the, after the next drive. And then they can't quite put it away. They had, the second pick. Yeah. They go up 10-0 and then they get the ball in the second quarter with 8:53 left, and it's like, okay, if they score here, this thing is over. And they throw another pick, and then Wisconsin gets a field goal right at the end of the half, and it's 10-3 going in, and then Wisconsin scores a touchdown coming out of the half, and all of a sudden it's 10-10, and it's like, whoa, this could have been a 3-score game if like real close it felt like, and then they didn't get there, and they let Wisconsin hang around, and then Wisconsin hung around for a while.
Did Luke Fickell have anything interesting to say?
Yeah, let's go to a little bit of that Luke Fickell sound. We're going to start with the one on big players. This was, he was asked essentially, this is another one of these, like, I don't want to oversimplify things, but, it felt like this game kind of came down to they had Travion Henderson and Marvin Harrison, and you didn't. So here's that sound from Luke Fickell.
Luke, how much do game changers make a difference? I mean, you look at Henderson and Harrison are two really good ones that no matter what you do, sometimes they just make plays. You lose yours at halftime, basically. I mean, how much when you analyze games and teams, how much does that make a difference?
Players make plays. I mean, it's not hard to figure out sometimes, and it's just it's hard to stop. And they had two difference makers that everybody knows about, but they were difference makers again tonight. And so we got those are the things you got to find. And when somebody goes down like Braden or Braylon, then somebody else has to step up. And hoping that you have some of those playmakers, they just haven't had the opportunities just yet. But that's what we're going to have to find. We're going to have to find those guys that have the ability to step up when somebody else goes down, and when their number's called and they have the opportunity and the ball comes their way, can they make the plays?
Luke, when we talked to Tressel on Wednesday, he was asked about the run defense, and he said one big hit at Iowa, quarterback running a lot at Illinois, but we still need to get better. What's the biggest area of concern with your run defense so far this year?
I think it starts with leverage, and then I think it goes into tackling. And there's all different kinds. We saw early in the year, and a lot of space tackles that we were doing that we weren't very good at, and maybe a little bit more tonight with some physicality on the tackling. Actually the ones that hurt us, those are the big runs. I think we had some missed tackles or some bounce offs, and a couple of third downs where we, they throw a check down, and we've got exactly what we want, and they find a way to, to get 7 when they need 7 or get 7 when they needed 6. But tonight was a tougher one to overload the box with, what you had to try to deal with on the outsides as well. So, it's a catch-22. But we know that that's where we've got to do a better job. But I know going into it that not giving up the big plays was critical. And if it was a methodical drive, I thought that, guys, this is something that we're going to have to live with in some ways, and then be able to make some plays, because we made enough minus yardage plays to put us in some really good situations, but in return we gave up too many of those really big plays.
And I think what's interesting there is, you kind of hear it from the other side where, Ohio State fans are going, well, Ohio State didn't make all of these plays. Well, the ones where Ohio State did make it, well, Wisconsin's feeling like, hey, we didn't make those plays. You had opportunities. You just needed to not give up the big plays. And then Ohio State got the big plays because guess what? They got some good football players. And that's, it is not always as easy as, well, if Ohio State, just did more of the good things, then they would, I have like this running joke on the sidelines with other photographers that, like, why don't they just run the Marvin Harrison play, which, that's a gross oversimplification, but also kind of like, but what if they did? And when they run the Marvin Harrison play, like, they should run the Marvin Harrison play more and the intentional grounding play less, in my professional opinion. But
I don't know that intentional grounding play, it's eventually going to hit.
It has been a bigger chunk of the offense than I anticipated this year. I will say that.
We'll get back to let's do the super chats. I just want to get back to that.
I think this is a second question.
Yeah, it's the second question on the same play. Yeah, Greg Johnson says if Trey catches that ball that hit him in the hands in the end zone, McCord stats and the score look a lot better. And that's kind of been
I was right.
That's kind of been the story of a lot of the year, where the Indiana game, like, if you don't have Marvin Harrison get called for stepping out of bounds, you add 30 yards and a touchdown, and then Ohio State wins that game 30-3 or whatever, and McCord has another touchdown, and you've had a bunch of, like, well, if only this hadn't happened or this had happened. They're close, which is good, and it feels like they're connecting and improving, so they're getting better. So, I know everyone's horseshoes and hand grenading right now. I don't think that's actually a word, but they have been close. They're getting better. So, at some point you're going to, if you do continue to improve, you do get a little more consistent. Eventually that stuff does end up hitting.
Yeah, just looking to see where that the incompletion to Henderson happened.
It happened right before it happened on Ohio State's fourth drive. That was the first pick, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's, right near the end of the first quarter where, they're down there, they're in the red zone or close to it. And they're threatening to make it 10-0 after the first quarter, which I think during the Friday show, we might have said, listen, if this is 10-0 after the first quarter, this is probably a relatively easy, comfortable win. If it's, 6-3 at halftime, then this is a real uncomfortable game for a while. And it was basically almost 10-0 in the first quarter and then close enough to 6-3 at halftime.
Yeah, if you have that, you take away the interception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Now, I want to go back to the big plays. Let's keep doing the super chats.
All right, super chat from Mike Smith. I wish the Stallion would have stolen the code and deciphered what the words from Day mean when it comes to explaining injuries and availability. Brian Day does not want to talk about injuries ever. And, I have kind of reached the point of acceptance on that. And the availability report, they're required to give the Big Ten an accurate availability report because you have to sort of assume they're telling the truth. And I was surprised to not see Emeka Egbuka listed as a game time decision on that, or as questionable on that, because that was the Pete Thamel report on Saturday morning was he's questionable. So then if he's actually available, you play him. I mean, if you're thinking, well, maybe he will, maybe he won't, depending on the weather, depending on the game state, depending on whatever that decision was made on. If there's a chance he's not going to play, without him re-aggravating the injury, if just something about some external factor other than he re-aggravates the injury, if some external factor makes you think that there's a possibility he won't play, then that means he's questionable. That's what that means.
Yeah. Just looking at that, Travion Henderson was the incompletion was from 19 yards. So if he catches that, McCord finishes 18 for 25 for 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about 72% completion percentage. You'll take that every time. And he has had some 70%-ish completion percentage, but they're still like, why did you skip that pass?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you bounce that one? Why did you sail that? And that's
the Kyle McCord experience to me boiled down to back-to-back plays tonight. He throws it was just a screen something to, I don't even remember who it was, one of the wide receivers, and it might have been Chip Trainum, split out wide or something, but whoever it was, just skipped it to him. And then the next pass, he throws a bullet to Carnell Tate, who running a slant into a tight window, and it was great throw, great catch, tight window. You just did the hard thing, and then the easy thing, you skipped it. What?
That's the experience.
Matthew Witham says what Mike Smith said.
Thank you very much for the super chat. Yes. Hey, and if you want any super chat you want to throw in to agree with anybody else, feel free. We love the friendliness, the camaraderie of the chat room.
Matthew wants to know, is Marv already the GOAT wide receiver to come out of Ohio State?
Brian Hartline has said that he's the best receiver that he's coached. And so the lineage, I mean, to say that about that group already puts you in the top 4, Tom. I know you don't like the Mount Rushmores, but it begins with Chris Carter.
Mm-hmm.
David Boston is there. Terry Glenn's 1 year. I'm not, if you're drafting receivers and they're all in their prime, who is taking somebody ahead of Marvin Harrison? Is anybody taking, Marvin Harrison is the first pick among all of the wide receivers in Ohio State history. And I think a sneaky second pick would be Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, this is one of those things where the wide receiver room is a lot like the quarterback room. These two things may be related to some degree, but you're talking about, you could everyone falls, victim to recency bias. That's just, every time any quarterback completes any third down pass in the NFL, your Twitter feed is just full of goat emojis. It's like, all right, settle down on Brock Purdy or whatever. Like, it's fine. Like, lots of people throw for first downs. But you're also, the recruiting at the wide receiver position has never looked anything like this for Ohio State.
No.
The productivity at the wide receiver position has never looked anything like that. The NFL draft results at the wide receiver position have never looked anything like that for Ohio State. And, it was, you go through history and it's like, okay, you had Chris Carter and then you had David Boston. And then, Michael Jenkins is kind of like a dark horse in there. You got Santonio Holmes, you got Ted Ginn. Like, you get these, like, it used to be like one a decade. Then it was like, one or two, in a 5-year span. Now it's just like, there's like 3 of them on the field at the same time. Like, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but like, it feels like in late October 2025, there is a non-zero chance we're having this conversation about one of the true freshman wide receivers who I'm not going to name because I don't want to put any undue pressure on anyone. But this might not be the last time we have this type of conversation on this type of show.
Throw Jeremiah Smith in there already.
That's irresponsible.
But also,
that's how I roll.
in 2 years when you're doing this, Carnell Tate is going to be a junior. And
I didn't say it. You said it.
No, I was telling you what his eligibility was. That's all. That touchdown catch by Marvin Harrison, watching it from the press box, and it looked like he was 2 feet out of bounds.
We all said no.
Yeah, there's no way. And you're just waiting for the ref to be like, look at it and like wave it off.
Yeah.
And then the hands go up instead of out. And you're like, we all doubted it.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. And then we were all like, we're all running for a replay. And then you see that toe just tap. And you're like, the son of a gun did it again.
He did it again. The Wisconsin interception, the first Wisconsin interception was like that. And in the same spot almost. And then Harrison did the same thing. Yeah, that was that. I mean, we talk about Mount Rushmore's the best Marvin Harrison touchdown catches or best Marvin Harrison catches. Like, that's not. I feel like that wasn't even in the conversation, and it also might have been one of the best catches of all weekend. Like, it's just
that's normal Marv.
The bar.
Like,
it's just like, oh yeah, well, that's what he does.
Yeah, he's ranked. He's graded against himself, and it's like it's all amazing. So how can anything be special?
Former Tennessee coach and current Arkansas State coach Butch Jones should have better things to do than write insulting things. But here we are. Kudos, Tony. Your 2 interns have been on their absolute best behavior lately.
You know what? That comes from the top down. That starts with the man in charge. So I appreciate that. I love getting feedback of how the interns are doing. Lets me know that the plans that I put in place for them are working. And this comes from lots of correcting their mistakes. I cannot tell you how much time we spend on correcting their mistakes. It is 6-8 hours a day of you did that wrong. You did that wrong again. If you do that thing wrong one more time, you're done. And it's the fear. It's the fear and the feedback, the fear that they have of being booted out for good that allows them to be ish in terms of how good they are. But I'm just glad, although you're only speaking of their behavior, so it has nothing to do with the quality of the work. That's just behavior. That's like, good job not biting people. You're well behaved because you've stopped. Don't.
Super chat wasn't enough to allow him to talk this long.
Thank you for the super chat.
Mike Smith asks, this was asked and answered earlier. How did you guys manage to get a sunburn at a night game? LOL, JK, keep up the great work. Subscribe to Buckeye Huddle for more great content. Strong agree on the last sentence there. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm looking at Tony, and Tony looks purple on the screen, and
But mine
Tony
looks a little bit better. But you're
maybe I don't know. It's either way. No, we do not actually look like. I'm looking at the camera right there, the monitor there. It does not look quite as.
What if we were to hold our breath right now, and just get really angry? Like, how purple would we look on screen?
Look like Violet Beauregard.
Yeah, it's something about the lighting in here. We're in a copier room, off the media room, because we're trying to not be loud and annoying with all the other media folks working. So Mike Farino asks, did Trevion Henderson finally put the rest the question about who is RB1 when everyone is healthy with the fan base tonight?
We tried we tried to tell people when everybody's healthy, Trevion Henderson is the guy that Ryan Day and Tony Alford went out there more than anybody else. And he showed why. And again, this Wisconsin defense has given up yards before but he made the most of what they were giving him. And he had, in terms of the big plays I wanted to talk about with him and Marvin. So there was, Ohio State had 6 plays of 6 rushes of at least 10 yards and 7 catches of at least 15 yards. 12 of those 13 plays were by Marvin Harrison and Travion Henderson. Marvin Harrison had 6 catches of 15 yards or more. Travion Henderson had a 30-yard catch in there. And then the only play that was not one of those two, Xavier Johnson had a 10-yard rush.
Yeah.
Like those two are big play machines. And you guys heard Luke Fickell say that same thing. Like it doesn't, sometimes it just doesn't matter when you have 2 guys like that can make plays.
Yeah. Yep. You have another one, or are we caught up?
We're caught up on Super Chats.
We're caught up on
We
Super
are- We
Chats.
just hit the 2-hour mark. If you want to reintroduce or
Okay. We've let's circle back real quick. Just overall, first of all, thanks everyone for joining us and staying up with us. This is if you have not hit the thumbs up, please hit the thumbs up on YouTube. I don't know, it helps somehow. We appreciate it. And if you have questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. We'll try and get to some of those as well. But this is another game where Ohio State was good, solid, had better football players than the other team, and used that to win. And they're going to be, unless something incredibly stupid happens. I mean, like 1998 Michigan State level stupid, and maybe even dumber than that, because I don't know that Rutgers or Michigan State or Minnesota are coached by one of the future greats of the sport. They're going to be 11-0. And it's like, okay, and then the season starts.
11 preseason games.
I mean,
and then the regular season starts from one game.
They've gotten a few tests, and they've passed all the tests, but for the fan base, I think you knew this going into the year. 11-0 was just sort of like that's the table stakes, and then the season officially comes down to did you beat Michigan or not? And boy, given some of the other things that have happened this week, there's going to be a whole lot narrative-wise on the line that week as well.
I did see a tweet out there that after the game, like now that the game's over, Ohio State fans can get back to clowning Michigan and their cheating program, something to that effect. But during this game, it sure seemed like, well, it's time to don't forget about focusing on Ohio State. And this is not a finished product by any means, and we saw that. And I did with this win. Does Ohio State, did they clinch a playoff spot? Now, there still needs to be one more loss for a one of these conferences, I believe.
Yeah, because you've got right now. You've got the answer is no. They didn't clinch a playoff. They didn't clinch a playoff spot. Right now, you've got a Pac-12 where Washington. I don't think Washington lost.
Washington won, but they were tested by Stanford.
They continue to be tested by not good teams.
Washington has kind of looked like cheeks the last couple of weeks against not very good competition. So this is not just an Ohio State issue, and it's more a Washington issue than an Ohio State issue in the wake of that win over Oregon. You've got in the ACC, Florida State just took Wake Forest lunch money earlier today. Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma now both have a loss. That was a big loss for Oklahoma in terms of Ohio State's playoff case. And then SEC, Georgia unbeaten there. What are they going to – I can't see a one-loss SEC champion getting left out. So maybe Alabama loses another one and you get a 2-loss SEC champion. But the Ohio State probably needs more help to be a one-loss non-Big Ten champion and get in. But there's a lot of games coming up where, a lot of teams still have to play other top competition, and someone's going to lose all those games.
Well, and somebody is going to win the Big 12 championship between the one-loss Oklahoma and one-loss Texas. And
unless they lose another game between then and now.
And if you can lose to Kansas, you can lose to
Texas doesn't have viewers right now.
Yeah, so there's a ton that is still going to happen, but this win I think puts Ohio State on deck. But it also depends on if you do lose to Michigan, how do you lose? Now Ohio State, we saw how they lost to them last year. and it was still good enough to keep them in the playoff hunt. But it was because of the wins that they had in the non-conference, and they have that same win this year as well.
Yeah, and so we'll kind of keep an eye on that, but that'll be an ongoing story as you go through. And I was just looking through Texas's and Oklahoma's schedule. I didn't see like any glaringly obvious.
Did you see a glaringly obvious loss to Kansas?
You're not going to believe this, but I did not. So I looked at Oklahoma and thought, well, they're pretty good. They've been consistent. They have a good win over Texas, and then turns out 18 to 22-year-old young men are not always the most consistent performers in the world. Mike Freno says, Symes just posted a tweet on the board. First win by double digits in Madison since 2000 and second since 1990. You want a little perspective on how long that's been.
That is fantastic.
This night that happened in 2000, that was the first game in Columbus Blue Jackets history, because I did not go to that Ohio State-Wisconsin game because I was covering the first game in Columbus Blue Jackets history. Tony, they got a 3-0 lead in the first period.
It was quick too.
They were about to, in the first period, I'm up in the press box planning the Stanley Cup parade. Did they lose that game to the Chicago Blackhawks? They sure did. Lots of stuff has changed in the last 23 years of the Columbus Blue Jackets. We love them so much. Bless their hearts.
Funny thing about that, tickets for the opening night, a pair of tickets, was a wedding present to my brother and his wife from me. Although more of a present to just my brother, because I don't know that she was the biggest hockey fan.
Did you ask, like, so you don't like hockey. You don't want to go. Why don't you stay? Have a spa day and I'll go with him.
Here's your tickets. Like, this isn't China. These aren't dinner plates. This isn't,
you're going to use this.
Yeah, you're going to use this now.
Practical gift.
If you leave after the first period, you'll think it was the best time you've ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something I want to throw in, just talking about schedules and everything else. We all thought maybe earlier in the season, look at Michigan down the stretch with Penn State and Maryland prior to Ohio State. Penn State wins, but looks like cheeks. Maryland looks like super cheeks and loses to Northwestern. So we're talking about being 11-0 going into that game. I mean, we're well onto that collision course.
I think we need to start having a conversation about, so is David Braun going to be the coach at Northwestern? Because it feels like David Braun might be the next coach at Northwestern.
He'll take it.
Just continue to be the coach at Northwestern. They are 4-4 right now, 2-3 in the Big Ten. Their remaining schedule, they got to win 2 to get bowl eligible. Iowa at Wrigley Field. Why? At Wisconsin. Purdue at home. At Illinois.
There are 2 wins there.
There might be 3.
I think there is exactly a 50% chance they win any of those games, because the whole Big Ten West. Here's a fun hypothetical that we were throwing around down on the field. If you took an all-star team of the Big Ten West, question number 1, who plays quarterback? Question number 2, could that team beat, let's say, Michigan?
No. Because it begins and ends with the quarterback. Is that Hudson Card? Is it Illinois' quarterback?
Luke Altmaier.
Luke Altmaier. Like, there's so many mistakes in there.
It's Deacon Hill of Iowa.
It is not Deacon Hill.
No, I feel like the answering that question involves starting at the bottom and just eliminating names. Like, I feel like you're choking on vomit. Like, no, who makes you think to feel the most like that? Okay, Deacon Hill, no thank you.
This conversation is poison to my ears.
Yeah, it is. Big Ten championship.
The fourth quarterback, the guy we saw here, is Braden Locke.
Yeah, Braden. I mean, honestly, it might be Braden Locke, and he was okay. He has been for 2 weeks in a row. Okay,
He's
18 of 39, 165 yards and a touchdown tonight. He was 19 of 40 or 21 of 40 last week for 240 yards and a couple touchdowns and no picks. He is not blessed with remarkable wide receiver talent. He's not fantastic. He looks like a young quarterback who is kind of, the game's going a little fast right now because he's constantly got guys in his face and his wide receivers aren't very good. But he might be one of those Wisconsin quarterbacks where 2 years from now they're 10-2 and they're in the whatever Peach Bowl hunt or something, and you kind of go, I remember Braden Locke.
He can move around a little bit. I do wonder if Wisconsin will continue to be a portal quarterback situation until Luke Fickell actually finds his guy, because I think Braden Locke is also a portal guy as a redshirt freshman. Don't quote me on that. But he did.
It turns out we didn't spend as much time prepping for a Wisconsin game as we typically would last week.
But he can move around as well. He started the game 1 for 8 and then completed like 7 passes in a row to get like 8 of 15 or whatever. So
I watched the Illinois game. That was how much I prepped for there to watch Braden Locke there.
Yeah. So
super chat from Tyler Nagy, 2002 feels or nah? And my initial thought is no, come on. And then, I myself have thrown out 2002 comps before in terms of, boy, the defense sure is carrying the mail. And, when the starting running back is out, the running game sure doesn't look very good. They had Michael Jenkins in 2002. Michael Jenkins is one of the most underrated players in Ohio State history. Michael Jenkins is not Marvin Harrison. And, Chris Gamble was an incredible player, but Chris Gamble was not Emeka Egbuka. And, there are very clear comps there. This just feels like such a different Ohio State team, but I think we are sort of recognizing that you're seeing the college football game slowly shift back towards the defense. You had, the early 2010s was Nick Saban's going to win the game by beating you to death with a ball peen hammer, and he's going to win the national championship 21-0, and he's going to do it by kicking like 5 field goals and scoring a touchdown, and that's it. And you're not going to get across midfield, and that all of those things literally happened in the national championship game. Before that, it kind of opened up with the spread in the late 2000s, and so it became a little more offense and Vince Young and all that. And before that, you had Ohio State winning the national championship. There was a year, the year before Ohio State won the national championship, or 2 years before, Oklahoma won the literal BCS national championship game 13-2.
Yeah.
It goes defense and then the offense, defense pulls ahead and then the offense pulls ahead and the defense pulls ahead and the offense pulls ahead. It feels like the defense is kind of catching it up and the offense is sort of looking over its shoulder a little bit, where maybe it's not going to be first team to 45 wins.
Yeah, the 2002, there's something to the defensive aspect of it, but this offense is vastly superior to that one, and so is the quarterback play. And I say that knowing Craig Krenzel led them to a 14-0 record and will live forever in the hearts of many Buckeye fans.
Not Shed, who has been critical.
But Craig Krenzel was 4 of 10 against Washington State in 2002 when Maurice Clarett went for 230 yards.
Yeah.
At Cincinnati the week after, 14 of 29 for 129 yards. He had a game where he was 10 of 21 at Illinois for 176 yards.
He was a willing runner.
He was. And that Miami game, the championship game,
he was the leading rusher.
He was the MVP. Do you remember what he threw for in that game?
Oh, I remember looking at it and going, oh, dear Lord, it was...
He was 7 of 21 for 122 yards with 2 interceptions.
That's
no touchdowns. But carried the ball 19 times for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I believe was the MVP.
Yeah, and and one of the reasons that you overcome that is, 1, how well he ran, and 2, one of those interceptions, you got the ball right back. It was a turnover, but it wasn't a turnover. You just lost some field. You didn't even lose field position because it was downfield throw, right? So, or did he got run back? It got run.
The interception into the end zone.
Yeah, it was a
okay.
So he lost about 50 yards on that.
So,
but then he comes back in 2003. Second game, San Diego State, 5 of 20 for 76 yards.
That is one of the worst Ohio State football games I have ever attended in person. The legendary John Perennis, longtime head of the Ozone. Tony and I both love and adore him. I remember I lived up in Michigan at that point, drove down to cover that game with John, and I remember sitting in the Ozone office after that game with John and Jim Davidson, and John going, well, sorry you drove all the way down here to see this game. That was I think Will Allen had a 100-yard pick six in that game, and it was like 16-13 against a terrible team, and 7 of the points were scored by the defense. It was Iowa before Iowa.
Yeah, they were going to need a defensive touchdown tonight. I mean, honestly.
But the thing that Ohio State has that they didn't, and because in 2002 you had Maurice Claret like sometimes. He missed a handful of games and was injured as well. Like
you might see a comp to that this year.
Well, and you've got Marvin to bail him out and the defense to bail him out. So I said earlier, an hour and a half ago or something, you've got the security blanket of Travion Henderson and Marvin Harrison right now. The third security blanket is this defense, and it's more than a security blanket. It is like a solid floor that you cannot go beneath. Like you're on good standing right now with this defense, and I know JJ McCarthy is going to pose a ton of problems with his legs, but the confidence that I have in this defense right now, that where are they? Where is the weakness? Where is the soft spot? You need to get Lathan Ransom back as quickly as possible so that they're at full strength, but they're good at all levels. And I thought the linebackers were good tonight as well. Lathan Ransom on his blitz should have had a sack, let Braden Lott get away.
Yeah.
I think he was maybe a little surprised that he just came in too free. And sometimes maybe the secondary is throwing shoulders instead of wrapping up. Denzel Burke did that.
Burke had one,
but Tommy Eichenberg or somebody was there to clean it up.
To clean it up about 3 yards out of bounds.
Yeah,
Yes, that was that play.
Now, that one was close to being a flag, and the ref watched it, and it was like Tommy Eichenberg was like falling down and decided to take the ball carrier with him. It's like one of those things like, I'll just come on down. You're the next contestant.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the Ohio State defense, and this is the same metric I cited earlier in terms of like relative performance of your opponents against you versus how they do against everyone else. Ohio State against the run, 13th in the nation on defense. Against the pass, they are first in the nation. Their opponents are averaging 35% less per pass attempt against Ohio State than they are against everyone else. So it's not just you're playing bad teams. It is you are locking people down.
Yeah, you see the silver bullets there.
Yeah. There's 7 tackles for Tommy Eichenberg, 6 tackles for Jack Sawyer, who, I mean, I have not seen, I have not seen Jack Sawyer complaints in the chat, which we saw a lot of Jack Sawyer complaints in the chat.
Also a forced fumble.
Yeah, forced fumble. Like he had a nice game. Steel Chambers had a solid game. But what's interesting is you don't have enormous numbers there because they were getting off the field. You had, you can look at big tackle numbers and go, wow, that guy had an incredible night. And it's like, well, sometimes that's what that means. And sometimes it means you couldn't get off the field.
Yeah.
I think
anytime a linebacker leads the team with just 7 tackles against Wisconsin, that means you've had a good overall defensive effort, because usually they have 15 tackles for the top tackler for the Ohio State Buckeyes against Wisconsin, and PJ Hill or John Clay or like all of these running backs where you're just constantly tackling them.
Yeah, Wisconsin had 25 rush attempts and 18 completed passes. That's it. Boy, Ohio State rushing 43 times to Wisconsin 25. When was the last time Ohio State outrushed Wisconsin in a game, just in terms of number of carries by 18?
Yeah,
I can't imagine that has happened a lot.
No, that's a good question, Tom. Great question. Maybe check that out and research that.
I was going to say that I've got some numbers I can maybe pull up in a second.
All right, and running through some of these numbers here, for 69 plays for Ohio State, 64 for Wisconsin, 23-14 in terms of first downs. That is kind of like a low key important thing, because it, number one, tells you you're converting your third downs. There was a point during the first half, and I'm like, what is the most number of third downs Ohio State has faced in a single game? Because it felt like just constantly Ohio State was in third down, and they picked up a bunch of them, which is how you end up with a bunch of them. But they were converting third downs pretty consistently. They were staying on the field. They were getting Wisconsin off the field. And that's all good.
Well, I think in the first half, in this one, Wisconsin was 1 of 6, making Ohio State 2 of 22 in their past 6 quarters.
That's pretty good
against third down. And
what was the disparity of run attempts or whatever? Because I've got the last
18. Ohio State plus 18.
Ohio State was plus 16 in 2017, so we're close there. But Ohio State was, again, plus 16 in 2013,
They ran the ball a lot that year.
2011, Ohio State ran it 58 times to Wisconsin running it 29 times.
Wow.
That's Russell Wilson.
That is, well, and it's Russell Wilson, and it's also freshman Braxton Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the year that Wisconsin couldn't stop throwing the ball because they had a future NFL quarterback, and Ohio State couldn't throw the ball much because they had a future NFL wide receiver.
In terms of the Ohio State third down, how many? They were 1 of 6. They forced 1 of 16 last week, 6 of 16 for Wisconsin this week. Those continue to be winning numbers. And 2 of those first downs came against Ohio State's new dime package, which, as you said, Tom, drop the dime.
Drop the dime. Super chat from Greg Johnson. Tom has been saying since the spring that as long as the defense under Knowles in year 2 is a lot better, the offense can afford to be a little worse. Facts.
Look at Tom taking credit for something he said that came true.
Well, I didn't. You haven't seen me type this in, so obviously someone else recognizes and appreciates.
No more super chats crediting Tom.
This is a different look for Ohio State, but it's working right now. And again, this is not the final exam. They have not played the final boss yet. And the final boss isn't really the final boss because you've got a couple more after that, but it's there is clearly a path to victory for Ohio State against Michigan. And Michigan has been largely untested. Michigan has just annihilated everyone they've played, but Michigan has been largely untested. There are some externalities right now with the Michigan football program that, boy, we'll see how that all goes over the span of the next 27 days between now and the trip to Ann Arbor. But, I think Ohio State fans should be right now feeling pretty good about this team. It is not a finished product, but man, oh man, the defense has been, they have not played perfect offenses by any means, but they've been so good against those teams. It's like the Ohio State defense has been like Michigan, where Michigan has been so good against bad teams that it means something. The Ohio State defense has been so good against bad offenses that it means something.
Yeah, and you're not seeing broken plays, and even when they do break a play, it gets fixed pretty quickly. Are we?
I think we're largely caught up. Yep.
Okay.
Do we want to? Do we have? Okay. Look, we're going to go through some pictures.
And we'll call it.
Yeah.
We can get pizza tonight.
Yeah. So here's Trevion Henderson. This was the last touchdown of the game. Trevion running that one in. This was a little earlier in that play. There were a couple times that I thought, he's going to get tripped up here, and that has been, speaking of people in the chat not being thrilled with Ohio State players at times, there was a lot of, Trevion Henderson goes down real easy on first contact. He did not go down on first contact.
He was making guys miss as well. I watched that touchdown run from the corner. We came down, tried to get on the field, and they wouldn't let us. And so I'm watching it from the tunnel, and I see
Did they have a velvet rope? You're like waving, trying to get me. I'm getting bottle service on the field.
Tom,
You're like, hey,
I know him.
Hey.
I was like, I know him. I know Tom. He's famous. He's on the internet. But I watched it and he's published.
They don't let just anyone on YouTube.com, Tony.
So I thought he got tackled basically, and then he kept running. I'm like, what just happened? And there he goes for the touchdown, 33 yards.
Let's hit a real quick super chat from Mike Farina. When is the Martinez experiment going to end? I get he might practice amazing and might be a great guy / teammate, but for 3 straight years, it seems like whenever he's on the field, the play is given up.
I thought it had ended because we haven't seen him for weeks, and then he showed up, and because it was noticeable. I'm like, oh hey, Cam Martinez is out there, and then they went right after him. They
saw the sign.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody signaled into them that hey, Cam Martinez is out there. But yeah, that was a rough one because the defense was playing really well. They had him backed up 3rd and 12, and then they went right after him.
And they are. You got to remember, Lathan Ransom banged up right now. We don't know the severity. Jahad Carter missed the game.
Yeah.
You're missing guys. Jair Brown was banged up, and you're missing enough guys that you can shuffle pieces around. And we talked earlier about the fact that you were expecting Jordan Hancock playing the nickel. You shift Sonny Styles to that bandit position, the boundary safety. You keep Josh Proctor at the adjuster position, that sort of field safety, the deep safety. But you're gonna at some point someone's gonna need to take a break at some point. So you got to sort of shuffle guys around. we saw Malik Hartford earlier in the year. That was a relatively short experiment because I think they thought, oh, maybe. And then it was like, oh, yeah, true freshman. Probably not yet.
It was a nice thought.
Maybe you see him. Does Kai Stokes get worked into the rotation more, something like that? I think they're trying some different stuff right now. And you could get away with trying some stuff because Wisconsin did not have the receivers and the quarterback to really make you pay. They are not going to light you up for 400 yards.
No. So you get through all of the pictures.
Well, we're gonna. Here's Marvin Harrison. This was the second half touchdown for Marv.
Can I say something about this one? Because I think the first read on this touchdown to Marv was the wheel route to Travion Henderson, and Kyle is waiting for it, and then the design of this play, the timing of this play, is such that you kind of seem like you give Trey an opportunity, and then if it's not there, you come back over to Marv, who is just now hitting the middle of the field.
Drag wheel.
Yeah, it is a drag route, and it's like you just hit it to him, and there's nobody around.
Yeah,
and it's just really, really good timing on the design on the play.
Yeah, I continue to look at this and go, how on earth does Marvin Harrison get that open? And
picking probably.
Well, I was going to say it looked like probably mesh. I'm guessing, but that it has been effective. So.
Are we all?
I think we're
defeated the listeners as well.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So I do want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, please find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. If you're not yet a member, it's a great way to support what we do here. To become a member there, we would appreciate that. Also, if you're watching on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe if you have not yet. And just thank you for the questions. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's kind of late where you are.
I didn't tell my story. I think we probably hit our.
We did.
Okay. Yeah.
We could tell it on the morning show.
It's
the entire morning show could be.
Okay.
Tom's
So
story.
I was running back from the fields to get back to be able to throw a memory card in my computer and dump photos over to a hard drive, and my foot caught just a little bit of the field goal net, and I went down, and I don't know how my brain processed it. I caught the camera. The camera didn't even touch the ground. I landed real hard. There were a lot of people in the stadium. Many of them I think saw. It was not the greatest moment of my life, but like a superhero, I protected the most vulnerable thing, which was the camera.
And his ego.
You know what would have been great if
the TV camera had been on me at that moment. Yes.
Oh, I wonder if there's somebody stationed at like the 45-yard line, like 14 rows up, who were taking video of the sidelines, somehow got the end zone view where you were. But the best thing would have been if you got your foot caught right as they're raising the net.
You're run up the net,
goalpost.
Yes.
And you're holding the goalpost, and it's like, don't worry, Tom's in good hands. And with that,
say goodnight, Tom. Say goodnight, Tony.
So we do want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching, and have a great night. We'll talk to you guys later.